kickoff to cash out. Your weekend sports destination is BetMGM Game Day on Westwood One Sports.
All right, here we go on a great Saturday, and honestly, it's one of the best stretches of sports that we have on the calendar. Alex Gold, Austin Huff with you for the next couple hours here on Westwood One Sports. Man, this is about as good as it gets. Maybe you could argue divisional round weekend, but we get a couple national semifinals Thursday and, of course, last night. And then here we go, divisional round next week, wild card today. 2 games, 3 games on Sunday, and of course a Monday night game, man. This is where does this one rank up there for you? Because I think this is one of the best weekends of the year.
Yeah, a lot of love goes out to March, especially like those first 2 weekends of the tournament. A lot of love goes out to like the months of April and October as, really great months. And they are, don't get me wrong. But not enough love goes to January. January is a month that often gets pooped on by everyone the entire year. And but if you are a football fan, this is arguably one of the best months, especially since college football has stretched out into January. I'm jacked. And can I ask a question off the top of the show? I know we're getting ready to kick off. What is it? Six NFL football games this weekend. What happened to us calling it Super Wild Card Weekend?
Yeah, that ended quick, didn't it? That gimmick ended after 1 year, and I know. Look, I actually didn't mind it. People, it bugged them, but they quietly, you're right, got rid of that. There was no announcement. It was like we're just gonna drop this thing.
Yeah, it just snuck away without anyone saying anything about it. Bring back Super Wild Card Weekend. I thought the NFL was trying to put in a monopoly on the word super because, you're not allowed to say, during the big game, you got to, use other terminology. I thought they were just trying to put super in front of literally everything that they own.
Yeah, look, and they have mastered our attention in the marketing angle of getting us, no matter how good or bad matchups are, we're addicted to it, man. And look, the first game today we'll get to in a bit because Rams-Panthers, of course, is looking like it's going to be a terrible football game. I understand the Rams lost to the Panthers, 6, 7 or so weeks ago, but this is a Panthers team that I think is playing worse football than anybody in their own division, yet they won their division. So that's a bizarre thing. And before we even get into some of these games and certainly the storylines, including how wins or losses today and tomorrow can impact whether or not some of these coaches still have their jobs, and then it just continues this coaching carousel. I think we do have to briefly mention last night because I don't know who you had winning. Last week we talked a lot about Indiana and Kurt Cignetti and the job he's doing, and where does that coaching turnaround stack up in sports history and college sports, and now just add another layer to it because he's got Indiana and a national title. But the beatdown they put on Oregon, I mean, even Dan Lanning was like, this was not what we didn't do. This is what they were able to do. That game was over so quick. The pick six, I guess, should have been a sign for all of us immediately, 11 seconds into the game that Dante Moore threw. But this story just continues to get more and more amazing week by week for Indiana.
I keep having to pinch myself being like, we live in a world where Indiana is not just good at football, they're the best team in the country. And it's a weird feeling. It's a weird world to be in, you have the season finale of Stranger Things going down recently. I feel like we are living in the upside down. This is a world that I was not expecting. That Indiana they are Bane. They are blowing up every football field that they play in and just taking no prisoners. They are an unstoppable force right now. I think I saw the early line for the national championship game against a really good Miami team, a Miami team that dominated in the trenches against Ole Miss. It's like a 7.5 point spread right now. That is insane. That's an insane line for a national championship game. And I mean, Indiana is right now what the SEC still thinks it is, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, they at this point in time have just been dominant start to finish. This is why I push back on the narrative that Indiana's a Cinderella. They're not a Cinderella. Maybe last year, Austin. Maybe last year Indiana was, where they truly came out of nowhere and nobody expected it. And we all know what happened to them in the CFP a year ago. But they've been number one for a while now. They've beaten Ohio State in a Big Ten title game. They, of course, did what they did against Alabama, and then now to see them destroy Oregon. Those are two football powers in back-to-back weeks. This is not it's a great story. Don't get me wrong. It's one of the best stories we've seen in our lifetime, but they're not Cinderella. That would have been if they won it all last year. And I pushed back, I know, a week ago when we were discussing the turnarounds in sports, and we were talking about Bill Snyder. You brought up UCF. Now that he's in a national title game, and if he completes the task, Cignetti, and wins a title, then to me there is no argument, I'll admit, at that point in time. I mean, if you win a national title, even in today's day and age of NIL and transfer portal, and running through the teams that they're running through, and not just winning by last-second field goals. I mean, this is utter domination. And I think there's a chance, by the way, they dominate Miami as well. Maybe not to the extent of last night, but I think the 7.5, while it seems like a massive number, it would not surprise me at all at this point. Austin, if they win by 10 points.
I think they're more of like an Elsa because they've got ice water running through their veins. That's what it is. They are something so much big. They're the best team in the country, and it's not even close at this point. It is Indiana and everyone else. I mean, and I know we kind of have to rewire our brains as sports fans, but Indiana is what Alabama once was. They are that. And the wild thing about it is they're doing it all without any 5 stars on their roster. In fact, they only have 7 4-stars on their roster, which makes me think that we have to reconfigure everything, whether it be the selection committee in football, in the college football playoff, whether it be the recruiting system that we've got. Because if Alabama is doing that with the quote-unquote lack of star talent, we've got everything wrong. We've got everything backwards. Indiana is here to prove our faults, and they're doing it in embarrassing ways. I felt bad for Oregon last night. I almost felt bad for Alabama in the Rose Bowl. Indiana is making me feel for they're victims.
It is truly mind-boggling when we look at the where the landscape of college football is trending. I guess I want to caution the idea, though, now that I think Kirk Herbstreit was mentioning kind of what you were saying, which is just this idea of it's more about just building this team and the culture, and you don't necessarily have to have this talent. I think we have to this is still so unique. I hear the argument that what they're doing without all the 5 stars and Mendoza, even, if you look at what he was at Cal, Cignetti in this coaching staff, this is such a special group. And even for them, I don't think that they're going to just fall off a cliff next year by any means. But my point is, I don't know how much this can be replicated in other programs. Look, trust me, if you're a fan of a lower level Power 4, you're looking at Indiana and you're saying we have hope. And I get it. We brought up the example, here locally for me, right? What's the difference between Kansas and Indiana 5 years ago? Really nothing. But look where Indiana is at. So I guess that should give me hope. But at the same time, man, I don't think this is something that we should think is so replicable moving forward.
Yeah, it does have all the feels of someone from your small town going on to Hollywood and starring in a big movie, this is funny. For a brief period of time, I went to high school with the pop singer Kesha, and she went to my middle school and everything. And when she went off, and when we first heard that she was making, she sung the song "You Spin." What's the Flo Rida song? "You Spin My Head Right Round." She sang the hook on that song. We were like, "Oh my gosh, Kesha made it big!" And then literally months later, she drops TikTok, and that song was everywhere for years, and it still is an absolute banger. And you're just like, oh my gosh, wow, if she can make it big, maybe one day I can. I don't think the same thing applies in college football. I don't think all of the small schools, because Indiana is an anomaly. They are doing things that I don't think can be replicated, mainly because not everyone has a Kurt Cignetti. Those coaches don't grow on trees.
Exactly.
They found a literally gold in a coal mine, and that's it. I don't think really anyone else can. And I don't mean to, I feel bad for the smaller schools across the country, but you're not going to be able to do what Indiana is doing.
And Indiana, look, there was a story this week that Mark Cuban has increased his NIL commitment. We're
Right,
seeing more and more of
right.
that. Way back when, maybe, no matter what program you were at, there were some of these very, very wealthy donors that they were just donating to, the academic side, which is great, by the way, but they were just donating to the academic side. And now that it's seemingly a bit more above board, we're not talking about bagmen handing bags of cash in a hotel room or something. Now that it's like all above board, now the Mark Cubans, et cetera, of the world are willing to contribute at the athletic department, which is where his money was going before. And so that's the game changer. We know the story at Texas Tech with I think was it Cody Campbell, I believe is his name, who is part of this huge. He's part of the board of regents for Texas Tech as well. But he's committing all this money now, kind of out of nowhere, for these programs. So that's the only part that I will say that has leveled the playing field. If you happen to be a fan of a program that has that kind of money behind you, and that person truly now wants to contribute, that can help you jumpstart it. But it is not just that NIL money for Indiana that's helping. This is Curt Cignetti, who is going to have a statue built and is going to be an absolute legend that people talk about 100 years from now there at Indiana.
And that statue's going to be frowning for sure. Yeah, no, money.
Holding a can of beer,
can,
apparently, too. He said he needed a beer on the field last night. He said,
right. Right. I love, like Curt Cignetti just like trying. First of all, Curt Cignetti is a cyborg, okay? He is not human, but he does these things in his post-game interviews to make him like seem relatable to other humans. He's like, like I need beer, Google me. I am, it's like, all right, Curt, like, look, we get it. We're okay with it. You are not of this world. Like you don't have to play it onto us, but no, money can get you into the dance in college football. They can get you into the ballroom, but to stay on the dance floor, you have to be built differently, because look at Texas Tech. Texas Tech, it can get you that quick turnaround. It can get you a seat at the table, but it can't keep you at the table. And I think it's really just like lightning in a bottle what Indiana has caught. And honestly, I'm interested to see if they can continue it after this season, after Mendoza leaves. Like, will they be able to have this much success with, the lack of, I'm sure they're probably going to get 5-star talent now, that recruiting's going to be a whole lot easier for them. But if they're unable to, like, I'm curious to see if they can sustain it.
Yeah, I think they'll be able to still be one of the top programs in the country. Will they be number one next year and all that? We don't know who the quarterback's going to be moving forward and all of that. Thinking of Mendoza, though, and maybe we can spend some more time on this a bit later, but with this kind of run for Cignetti, naturally people are going to talk about the NFL, not just for Mendoza, who might be the number one overall pick, and the Raiders currently hold that. And, everybody kind of right now thinks it'll be Mendoza 1-1. We'll see as the draft process plays out. It's a rough look for Dante Moore last night, although I don't put a ton of stock in like just that head to head. If you were trying to figure out which quarterback to take, I think you got to look at far more than just last night. But what about Cignetti in the NFL? Do you think that would be a good path, A, for an NFL team, B, for Cignetti? Because someone has to sell me on why Curt Cignetti would want to leave college football. He can run everything the way he wants to. Ultimate job security now. The buyout, number one, to get him out of college football is north of $15 million for starters. And then you don't have success. Let's say it's the Raiders. You don't have success the first 2 years. By year 3 or 4, you're done. And yeah, you could go back to college football, but why go that path? And I know these guys, want the challenge and want to prove that they're the best of the best, and the NFL is still where the best are at. But man, like I just don't get why anybody, like, if you're Cignetti, you would want to go to the NFL.
Yeah, I think it is. It's just one of those ego things where it's, okay, well, I've accomplished all I can accomplish here. I need to go to the NFL. And a lot of times, like the Sabans of the world, they get that taste of the pro level and they're like, or vice versa. They're in the pro level and they get that taste of college ball and they realize, oh, this is not my cup of tea. Because they are two entirely different games or sports. They're two entirely different job requirements. I mean, you have to be not just a head coach at a college football, in college football. You have to be a salesman. You have to be a marketer. You have to be, you have to recruit. You have to do so many different things. And but then that NFL paycheck comes calling, and you're intrigued at the idea of being like, well, look, if I can dominate on the college game, let's see what I can do at the pro game too. Because there's only like a handful of coaches that have won both a national title and a Super Bowl. Pete Carroll being, of course, one of them. But I don't know. I that's my only thing. I'm like you though. I don't. If I'm Kurt Signetti, I'm not going anywhere for a long time, and I'm staying at the college football level. If anything, I'm becoming like the guys that started Rivals back in the day. They then sold it to Yahoo, and then go
Yeah.
off and start what I think was it On Three next, and then or there was another recruiting site that they raised up, and they sold that. Then they started On Three, and they just keep doing the same thing. If I'm Signetti, I build up Indiana. Then I leave and I go to a small school again and I do it again and then I leave, because it's like that's kind of half the fun is like just turning heads with these programs that you did not expect to be in the national championship.
You're describing like what I did when I was like 14 in dynasty mode of NCAA football or something. That's exactly what you
Yeah,
just
right.
described. I'm going to pick the small school and turn them into a power. And look, Indiana by no means is a small school, but certainly has not been a football power until now. All right, we're just getting started here on BetMGM Game Day. He's Austin Huff. I'm Alex Gould. Let's talk about the NFL, man. We've got 2 wild card games today, 3 more on Sunday, and major implications for a couple coaches, maybe even GMs, if things don't go well tonight in Chicago. That's coming up next here on Westwood One Sports.
Your weekend sports conversation rolls on with BetMGM Game Day, right here on Westwood One Sports.
It's something that Coach preaches all the time, but they're totally and completely present. I feel like there was a moment of excitement to finish off the regular season, right? But also the moment of realization that this is an opportunity that in front of us that we feel like we have the pen in our hand. We have the opportunity to write our own story. And it started Sunday after that game when we had our final break and we congratulated Coach on his 100th win and said, hey, we're going to look for more.
That was Puka Nacua getting set for Rams-Panthers. First game up here on Wild Card Weekend. Rams and the Panthers will kick off in a couple of hours. First one up, 4:30 Eastern. Rams big 10.5-point favorites over at BetMGM. And don't forget, with some of the biggest games happening right now, the biggest games of the year are kicking off. Use an odds boost token to score a bigger payout if your Pro Football Playoff bet wins with the Pro Football Playoff odds boost token over at BetMGM. Alex Gold, Austin Huff with you. And, man, I think the Rams-Panthers game, you know, the implications there other than the postseason, that one for a lot of reasons just doesn't have the same storylines as any of these other games. Like I want to get to tonight's game in a second because that's the more fascinating one. But Rams-Panthers, yeah, they played. Maybe that's the intrigue. Like they played earlier this year and the Rams did lose. Is that the only part that has you maybe thinking there's something that's going to happen that's going to surprise us? Because otherwise, I think this will easily be the worst game of the entire weekend. And the Rams, to me, despite being a wild card team on the road, like I still consider them a legitimate Super Bowl contender.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what the NFL scriptwriters want you to think, Alex. That is exactly, they've got this set up to where it's like, yeah, oh, that's going to be the dud of the weekend. That's why they put it on the first Saturday game of the season, or I mean of the playoffs. You know, it's always the worst matchup, right? But sometimes it tends to be the best game a lot of times, right? Like, I mean, I just think of, yeah, like I'm not expecting much from this, like you said. I'm like you, but I for whatever reason I feel like that's exactly when the NFL zags, when we expect it to zig. But I am excited to see Devontae Adams back. If we're trying to pull out things to look forward to in this game, but you're right, it is and I mean even if it was Bucks, if the Bucks somehow snuck in with the Saints winning in Week 18, I think it would maybe make it better, but I think it would still kind of have that same feel, no?
I'm curious what the line would have been. You know, it's 10.5 here for the Panthers. What do you think? 7.5, 8.5, or is it still like 9.5? I think it's probably 7.5 or 8.5 still for the Rams.
Yeah.
If it would have been the Bucks. But as we said to start the show last segment, like just brief comment, like I think the Panthers are playing the worst football of anybody in their own division, and yet they won it in a bad NFC South. I mean, they just lost to the Bucks, who were not playing good football. The Falcons were actually playing better football than anybody down the stretch in that division. And then the Saints, Tyler Shuck, it looks like they might have found something there. You know, he's going to be their quarterback in 2026. And so Carolina, while, you know, Bryce Young, it was weird, like some of the narrative out of their loss to Tampa was like, well, he proved himself. Look at the numbers he put up. I disagree. Like, I think still the problem ultimately is, you know, it's a roster that doesn't have good enough quarterback play to elevate what is still a weak roster at this point in time. And I think you look, other than Ted McMillan there, the Rico Dowdle story has been great. But when they can't run the ball, which they struggled against Tampa, when they cannot run the ball, and they really couldn't, then Bryce Young having to go and win a game for you, I'm sorry, like, yes, the fourth quarter comebacks have been there at times throughout his career, but across an entire game and against this quality of an opponent, I don't think they have a shot. You know, maybe we could argue whether that they can cover. I actually still think the Rams are going to cover the 10.5.
Well, I'll tell you what, whether they cover or not, the Rams need to win this game. More specifically, Matthew Stafford needs to win this game. Because if you put out, an MVP leading season like the one you just put out in probably one of the final years of your career, I'm not going to say it's the final year, obviously, but I think we're nearing the end of Matthew Stafford's time in the league. If you come out and you lay an egg against the Carolina Panthers, like, what does that do for the Matthew Stafford legacy, which I feel like already doesn't get enough love because, he is a Super Bowl winning quarterback. The things that he did in Detroit when it was not the Detroit of nowadays, it was the Detroit of old. It was, it was the old Indiana football, Detroit Lions. Like that's Matthew Stafford has, he's always been great. But now it's like I feel like people will not put him in the echelon that he probably deserves to be in until he gets another ring, and that's if he gets another ring. And it all starts today at 4:30, and I think Matthew Stafford is one of the guys over the entire weekend that has the most to lose here.
Yeah, this could be it. And I think, if you want to end any doubt that some people might still have for whatever reason about a Hall of Fame case and whether or not he's a first ballot guy down the road or any of that kind of stuff, certainly this postseason will be a big part of it. I expect them to win comfortably. Like I think last week we talked about it. I believe the Rams can still get to the Super Bowl. They're still my pick out of the NFC, even though Seattle is going to have a lot to say with that. I just think the Rams are one of the teams that can go to Seattle if in fact that's the path that they need.
Yeah.
And actually go get a win. Of course, we'll have to wait till next week if in fact we get that matchup. But then the game tonight, Austin, that's the one, the game itself, and then there's a lot of noise surrounding it. We get Bears and Packers, the great rivalry there in the NFC North. It's Saturday night at Soldier Field is going to be nuts, I'm sure, this evening. You can see if you're watching on Twitch or YouTube at the bottom of your screen there at BetMGM. The Packers are 1.5-point favorites. The total for this game, 44.5. You look at the potential weather for the game as well. You would think that would favor a team like Chicago, given their rushing attack. They've got the better run game with Swift and Monangai. But then there's this cloud hanging over the game as well. And there was an update from Ian Rappaport this morning, which is, what does Matt LaFleur's future look like if they were to lose this game? He has a 1 year left under his contract. We know members of that front office before the season had said that they don't want a lame duck coach, and most coaches in any sport, for the most part, don't go into a year as a lame duck. You either extend them or you fire them. And there was a report from Ian Rappaport suggesting that the Packers and Matt LaFleur are hoping to meet shortly after the end of the season, whether that's tonight or whether or not that's a week or two from now. We'll see, to discuss extending his contract, and both sides are hoping for a great outcome. There was a report in a paper in Milwaukee this week that the hang-up there, if there is a hang-up, is, Matt LaFleur wants to be compensated the way he thinks he should be compensated, north of $12 million a year, which would make him one of the higher-paid coaches in the league. And, we know they've been a consistent playoff team, but it's been a couple years, since they won multiple playoff games. It's been a couple years since they were in an NFC title game. I think it was 2019, 2020 when they were in back-to-back NFC title games. Do you think Matt LaFleur's job is in jeopardy if they lose tonight?
I don't think it should be. I look at Matt LaFleur the same way I looked at John Harbaugh before he was canned. I mean, I think he's a legitimately good head coach. I don't, a lot of NFL teams, especially around this time of year, tend to think that the grass is always greener. The grass is not always greener. Like that is a mere illusion. There are a lot of times when you'll can your head coach and things can get worse. Trust me, I'm a Titans fan. Things can always get worse. Okay. Yeah. Like it is bad. But if they don't, they've made it to the playoffs in 3 of the last 4 years, and they've only won 1 playoff game in that time. Like it's like, and I think that's the way Packers fans, they're starting to think like, well, and Matt LaFleur said it himself. He's like, anything can happen in these games. Like it's about what you do in that day once you make it into this part of the season. And if you have a bad day at the office, I mean, jobs are on the line because of that. But I don't know. Ian Rappaport with that piece he put out today made it seem like I'm thinking Matt LaFleur is probably a little more safe than I expected him to be. But I think he should be. I think he's a great coach, and I think what he's doing there and the turnaround he's had. Look at what he did with Malik Willis. Malik Willis was terrible in Nashville, and now he's looking like he could be a starter on 31 other teams in the league, or well, I guess 30 other teams because he clearly wasn't one in Nashville. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like LaFleur. The grass is not always greener on the other side, and Packers fans should know that because they literally have green grass.
I think it would be a massive mistake to move on from Matt LaFleur. And I understand that perhaps it makes it easier for the Packers to move on. It's a copycat league. And if you believe that, Harbaugh getting let go in Baltimore now makes it more palatable, I guess, for ownership in Green Bay to move on from a coach that has had success, but you think there's more out there. The same thing, I guess, could be said in Buffalo. We'll get to them. They play tomorrow against the Jags. What happens with Sean McDermott? What happens with their front office if, in fact, they fail in an AFC that appears to be wide open for Josh Allen? But I think Matt LaFleur, here's the thing. If you're him and the Packers were to decide to move on from you because you can't agree on the financial terms, which is kind of what seems like what could happen if, in fact, he doesn't stay there, it would be because of the contract number, then we know one of his colleagues is now the new GM down in Miami, in Sullivan, Eric Sullivan or whatever.
Yeah.
So, he immediately you would have to think that Matt LaFleur in all likelihood could become the next head coach of the Miami Dolphins. Now, we can get into the coaching carousel more next hour and talk about which job is better. And, the issue with Miami is I don't think they're going to be able to win in 2026. Based off of the quarterback situation, the Tua number that's going to be left behind, and then who's the quarterback. So I don't know how great of a job Miami is immediately, but that would be an automatic landing spot, you would think, for Matt LaFleur naturally because of the relationships that's there. So I think it'd be a mistake. The Harbaugh thing I view a little bit differently because to me, it wasn't just that there wasn't the playoff results they were expecting, but you also had, the rumblings about the relationship with Lamar Jackson.
Yeah.
I haven't seen anything in Green Bay to suggest there's any tension between Matt LaFleur and Jordan Love, Matt LaFleur and the front office.
Yeah, I haven't either. And that's why I don't necessarily understand it. I understand fans' frustrations. Trust me, I do. Because, you go over in the playoffs in, 2 of their last 3 appearances. That can wear on a fan base. I understand that completely. But when it comes to actually running the franchise, you got something good. There are, how many teams in the NFL are chasing what the Packers have? And there's only one team that wins the Super Bowl every year. And I feel like a lot of NFL fans forget that. There's literally only one. That means 31 NFL franchises are coming up empty-handed every year. So it's not like if you were able to make it to the dance consistently, that's all you need. That's all you need is a ticket, and then anything can happen in the playoffs. I don't understand it. But you bring up LaFleur in Miami, man. That hair on South Beach, man. That he would look good down there, wouldn't he? I feel like he would have a 32nd floor penthouse in one of those high rises down there. I could totally see LaFleur.
Cost of living going to be a little bit more down in South Beach than Green Bay, Wisconsin. It's going to be a little bit more expensive for him to get the crib. And by the way, I love Green Bay. I had a blast going up there a year or two ago for a Chiefs-Packers game. The scene there is sensational. Their fans are amazing, and the history there is so great. But yeah, just a bit of a difference living down in South Beach than Green Bay, Wisconsin. Is there a more polar opposite flip if, in fact, that would be where he would land than going Green Bay to Miami?
Yeah, I'm trying to think, man. No, I feel like the going from Green Bay to Miami is the polar opposite, and then the closest would be going either from Vegas to Nashville or Nashville to Vegas. I think either one that would be the closest, and then Green Bay to Miami has got to be the exact opposite scenery from just market size to surroundings around. Yeah, exactly. The calories in your food.
True. Yes. Yeah. All the way. Yeah. The cheese curds. I don't know if you have to search for the cheese curds down on South Beach a bit more than you do up in.
That goes against the
Bay.
bikini bod. Yeah.
Yeah. And look, for the record, by the way, I think Matt LaFleur will actually end up staying in Green Bay. We'll give our thoughts on the game specifically. I just thought the more interesting angle with that game tonight, honestly, is what happens with Matt LaFleur. But it should be a hell of a football game. We'll pick that one a little bit later on in the show, see if we're on opposite ends on who ends up coming out of that one, where the Packers are slight favorites, 1.5-point favorites against the Chicago Bears. Up next, though, we had a couple new items to the list. Last week, we had some fun with that. I've got a new addition, and it relates to the NFL. That's next here on BetMGM Game Day.
BetMGM Game Day. The action starts here. Westwood One Sports. breaking down the biggest games and the smartest angles. This is BetMGM Game Day on Westwood One Sports.
Alex Gold, Austin Huff with you. You guys can watch the show on YouTube and Twitch as well. And, of course, listen to it on the Odyssey app, Westwood One Sports app as well. We appreciate you guys hanging out with us. We're just getting started on a great Saturday in the sports calendar. National semifinals wrapping up yesterday. Wild card action a couple hours from now, starting with the Rams-Panthers. We'll get back into some NFL as it pertains to the wild card games, game by game. We'll give our picks, some of the other storylines. We'll also do a little coaching carousel here in 20 minutes. But last week we debuted the list here on our first show, Austin. We added a couple items to the list, including movie theater etiquette, I guess, as one of the items as well. I got some feedback on that. Some people called me an old curmudgeon for that one. But you know what? It's something that needs to end.
Yes, stand strong, Alex. Honestly, I absolutely loved that take last week. Clapping in movie theaters should be outlawed. It should be a federal offense, and people should go to prison if they do it. So I am fully behind you on that. Yeah, the list is an ongoing list. Nothing gets taken off the list once it's on there, but you can always add to the list things that just grind your gears, that annoy you, that just frustrate the absolute heck out of it. And every week we're going to add something new to the list. You got something you're going to add to the list this week, Alex?
Yeah, look, this is probably something that we could have almost started the list with this already on it without us even having to introduce it, because I think it kind of goes without saying, especially for those Dallas Cowboy fans that are watching or listening right now here on Westwood One. I'm adding Jerry Jones's cluelessness to the list, and it drives me crazy. Now, it provides great fodder and entertainment. Trust me, even outside of Dallas, we've got plenty of great Jerry Jones sound bites, because he is certainly the master at getting people to talk about the Dallas Cowboys. But the latest is the reason why he's getting added to the list in the cluelessness, which is, I don't know if you caught his comments this week with the Dallas Cowboys owner discussing that one of his ultimate goals as an owner before he no longer is the owner, no longer is around, and that is to finish with the most Super Bowl rings of any owner. Yeah. Of any owner in NFL history. And remind you, he needs 4 more to get to where Robert Kraft is at. 4. He hasn't won one in, 30 some odd years? And now you're talking about not just 1, not just 2, not just 3. I mean, the cluelessness. It's fine to have goals. We all have goals. Some goals are obtainable. Some are completely unrealistic. I have goals to one day win the lottery. I'm never going to win the lottery.
Right.
You know, we can be realistic in life. He's not being realistic whatsoever. I don't know why he thinks he has any chance to catch Robert Kraft. I don't think anybody really is going to do that anyway, but it's certainly not going to be the 80-some-odd-year-old Jerry Jones that's going to catch him.
Yeah, you know how like the older you get, the more time flies by, right? You know, especially like if you have kids, like it only enhances that. I feel like Jerry's to the point in his life where time is flying by so quickly to where he still thinks that dynasty he had in the mid-90s was like last year. You know, like I don't think he realizes that we've been through, you know, the Tony Romo era, the Quincy Carter era, you know, like we've been through so many different eras. Now the Dak Prescott era of Cowboys football. It's like, Jerry, dude, hey, breaking news, man. Cowboys haven't been good for a minute now, and you want to get 4 more trophies? Yeah, and you know what? I want to win the Heisman Trophy, Jerry. How about that? You know, I want a toilet seat made out of gold, but some things just aren't going to happen, right? You know, like I think Jerry Jones is, and I'm sure Cowboys fans will probably be at the front of the line to add their diabolical owner to the list. So Jerry Jones, man, you are added to the list.
Yeah, let's lock him in.
I think, he's got a mainstay. He's literally the house band for the list. The thing I am adding to the list this week, Alex, something that's kind of bothered me a lot. And it's a phrase that we use in sports way too often. It's the phrase 110%. Go out there and give it 110%. Go out there and give it your all. You know, you hear it all the time. Give it 110%. First of all, guys, that's mathematically impossible. Unless you're my car's gas gauge that one night in college, like you're not giving it 110%. The people who say 110% are like the same people that say gazillion, or like the people that say 100 and go out and give it 110%. They're the people in the corporate world that like use words like synergy, right? The people that use the phrase go out and give it 110% probably subscribe to all of David Goggins' podcasts. I just think it is time we lay to rest the give it 110%. All right. Okay. Now, look, let's say hypothetically you could actually give it 110%. We work in sports talk radio. We live on hypotheticals, right? Hypothetically, if 110% is attainable, why stop at 110%? Why not give 150%? Why not give 368%? Why not give 971%? Why are we stopping at 110? Who came up with that number? Just give it 100%. Go all out. You cannot give 110%. And if you can, why aren't you giving more? Sorry, 110%, you're added to the list.
It's just that slight bit of added effort, man. We know 110%, it feels more realistic for people. Like I'm there just a little bit more. I'm gonna just outdo you just by a little bit, 10% more. That's all it is.
How is that possible? I don't get it. Like I don't see how you can give more than literally the full tank.
This is good to know. This is good to know now. I kind of am getting, again, we're learning more about each other as we get into our second show now on the network. That this is something that I can tell this clearly bothers you. This is something that
it does.
You hear over and over. There must be other, you listed off a couple. Now this has me thinking about, there's plenty of other sayings where you're like, well, that doesn't make any sense that I think really bug you.
Oh yeah. Honestly, it's, honestly, a lot of things in sports grind my gears. Obviously, last week I think I added Michael Irvin's belt to ass celebration in games that they didn't. They just barely
by the way,
squeezed out.
Did you see the video of there was it looked like an Ole Miss student maybe after the game? I don't know if it was $100 bill or a 20 or whatever. Where Michael Irvin after the game, there's video because they had somebody following him around the whole time that was posting on his social media, which was really, really smart. And he went up to some kid at the end of the game and said, and it looked like he was handing him cash. Like, can I have your shirt? He said jersey, but it was like a sweatshirt. Can I have your sweatshirt? And it was so he could do his video of belt to ass. And he needed that hoodie. He needed that sweatshirt in order to do it. So I don't know how much money he gave the kid, but the kid was like, fine, here, it's like my team lost. I'm depressed. Here, give me the money, take my sweatshirt.
The only team that can do the belt-ass celebration this playoffs is Indiana. Everyone else, and maybe Oregon after the Texas Tech win. Yeah, right. Like you can't do it for games that you barely squeak out. If you beat a team by a field goal, that's not belt-to-ass. Like that is not. It's the punishment does not fit the crime, or the celebration does not fit the outcome. I feel like it's just I don't know. Look, I am an expert in belts that do not fit. So I feel like I can tell you right now that one does not. So
new additions.
But you know what? Hey,
new additions, man, to the list. I like it.
We're just out here giving 110%. That's all we're doing here on BetMGM Game Day.
That's all you can ask for here on Westwood One Sports. Real quick, I'll mention a little bit of news coming out while we were talking and adding to our list. Adam Schefter just sent out a tweet a few minutes ago as the Panthers get set to host the LA Rams today in their wild card game. That maybe not too surprising here, but the Panthers are expected to pick up Bryce Young's fifth-year option. We all know he was a first-round quarterback, and so you're a first-round pick. You got the option to do that. I think, one, this is just the way you play it out. It's a smart move. I'm very hesitant on giving an extension anyway to Bryce Young. So you drag this out a bit more. You go ahead and just do the fifth-year option and see where things go moving forward. I don't know where you're at, and I know teams get in this spot where they feel like, well, we have to extend him. And the issue is there's just no middle ground of contracts for quarterbacks. You're either getting cut or you're getting the next contract that makes you one of the 5 highest paid quarterbacks in the NFL. It's just,
right.
It's the way the market works. I mean, you can go way back. I mean, this has been going on forever. I mean, Derek Carr at one point in time was the highest paid quarterback in football. He was never the best quarterback in football.
Yeah.
Like Patrick Mahomes is not the highest paid quarterback on an annual average in football right now. There are other guys that are not as good that are. So that's the challenge, I think, if you're the Panthers. I'll tell you this. I know you say, well, then who's your quarterback, Dave Canales, if you don't extend Bryce Young? But this was the problem with Tua as well. Look where Miami's at. They felt like they had to extend Tua, and now where are things at? Their head coach is gone. Their GM is gone. They're probably just going to eat $99 million in dead cap, I believe is the figure for him. You know, their teams feel like they have to give extensions to these guys because we don't have a middle ground. It's fine if you extended Tua if he was just making, you know, the 10th most, you know, on average. The problem is that's not how this league works.
Yeah, no, it is weird, this world of quarterbacks that we're living in, because everyone feels like they need to have one, and so everyone feels like they need to pay one. And you know, you're not getting quarterbacks working on minimum wage anymore. You know, like it's just not a thing, and it's kind of a shame because you've got teams like Carolina, which is like you've got a quarterback that's good enough, I guess, but not worth paying, you know, breaking open your bank and putting you in cap hell for it. So yeah, I think I like them picking up the option because it does kind of buy you some time, but don't rush into anything too soon, Carolina.
Yeah, we're about to hit this next crop of quarterbacks that are quote unquote due to get paid. I mean, CJ Stroud is the other one. At least we saw his rookie year what he was. I understand that people maybe are not viewing him the same way they did a calendar year ago or so, but he at least has shown the top end level. Bryce Young, there's just no way I would. There's just no way I would give him the extension, the type of money that's required in the NFL these days to pull off an extension. So we'll see how that ultimately plays out. But just the news from Adam Schefter a couple hours before Bryce Young plays in his first ever playoff game. And I guess that's the beautiful thing of Wild Card Weekend. If they shock the world, I don't think it's going to happen, but if they shock the world and Bryce Young plays amazing, you know, that's how you change how everybody feels about you and what you're capable of doing. How about coaching carousel? Boy, oh boy, 25% of the league has a job opening right now. Let's go through the carousel. What job is the best? That's next here on Westwood One Sports.
This is BetMGM Game Day, only on Westwood One Sports. From kickoff to cash out, your weekend sports destination is BetMGM Gameday on Westwood One Sports.
Alex Gold, Austin Huff with you here on BetMGM Gameday. We're an hour closer to kickoff wildcard weekend. Rams and Panthers will get it going at 4:30 Eastern. Still plenty of time, of course, to take a look at some of these games and maybe find your best bet of the day and take advantage of the Pro Football Playoff No Sweat token right now over at BetMGM. The big boy is about to battle. Attach your No Sweat token to a qualifying playoffs bet and get back bonus bets if you don't win. Coming up here in 20 minutes, we'll be joined by Bobby Bones, one of the great personalities in the business, and does a great podcast with Matt Castle as well. We'll talk some NFL with him. Certainly the Bears game tonight as they get set to host the Green Bay Packers. And the coaching carousel, every year I feel like we get to the middle of the season and like we say, oh, there's only going to be 3 or 4 openings. And then we get here like, no, there's going to be 6 or 7 at minimum, and here we are, 25% of the NFL has an opening, and as we discussed, depending on what happens tonight and the rest of the weekend, we could have 1 more, maybe 2 more openings if you buy into the pressure that might be on Sean McDermott in Buffalo, the talks with Matt LaFleur. Could Nick Sirianni be a surprise firing? I'm not saying they're all going to happen, but that's certainly the discussion, so we could have another job opening up. This has been a crazy week, and it's headlined by John Harbaugh no longer being the head coach there in Baltimore, and he instantly becomes the best candidate, and the Ravens' job instantly became the best job available at the same time.
Yeah, we're not in NFL playoff season. We are in requested a formal interview season. That's what we're at right now, because I feel like every other tweet from Schefter and the Rappaports of the world is basically just telling you which teams. And with a quarter of the league with job openings, I mean, Alex, you and I may land an interview by the time it's all said and done. Like it's unreal. And I think what really, really shook it up, like, was John Harbaugh getting let go. If that field goal goes in, John Harbaugh's still gainfully employed this week. If that field goal goes in, Mike McDaniel is probably still gainfully employed this week because he didn't get let go until Thursday, which again shook up the carousel even more. It's weird butterfly effect that goes down in the NFL this time of year because, I mean, you saw the reports after Harbaugh was fired. There were 6 head coaching openings, and 7 teams had reached out to him. Well, the Ravens became the 7th team. They're not reaching out to John Harbaugh for a job after just letting him go. So that means a team that had someone gainfully employed, and I think by all means it looks like it was Miami, have reached out for John Harbaugh. Like, it's just a wild time of year, and you never know like what's going to go down. And I mean, after this weekend, we talked earlier about LaFleur. What happens if they go out and completely just poop the bed against against the Bears tonight? Is LaFleur going to be added to this list? I mean, it's unlikely, but it's possible. And it's just a weird time, man.
It can only, there's a chance it gets crazier, yeah. I mean, whether we're just Green Bay or I keep mentioning Buffalo, although locally we had somebody on from Buffalo that covers the team and suggested that the change that could happen if the Bills were to lose tomorrow to Jacksonville is more with their general manager than it is Sean McDermott. At one point in time, we said, well, some of these guys are safe because who are you going to hire? It doesn't seem like it's this sexy list of coaches, but now Harbaugh's on the list and Stefanski's on the list. And could you have a Matt LaFleur available on the list? Like, you actually have some pretty good candidates, not to mention, depending on what happens with upsets, if any happen next week. I mean, some of these guys can only do Zoom interviews. Some of them can't do interviews because they're still in the playoffs. You got a guy like Clint Kubiak. It's been quiet so far, but he's the OC in Seattle, and a lot of people believe he is likely to get a head coaching gig in this cycle. And because 25% of the league has an opening, Cliff Kingsbury might not have to wait another year to find a head coaching opportunity. Like, we could see Cliff get a head coach job again. Here, just to refresh it for everybody, we know Harbaugh's out in Baltimore, Stefanski out in Cleveland, Mike McDaniel out in Miami, Raheem Morris out in Atlanta, Jonathan Gannon out in Arizona, Pete Carroll one and done in Vegas. We talked about that last week. That seemed like that was pretty obvious where that was trending. And then we all know earlier in the year the Giants move on from Daboll, and then a team that you keep a close eye on, the Tennessee Titans were the first team to move on from their head coach, Brian Callahan, sent packing very early on in the season. What's the best job now? Like what's the best job that's out there? Because I think, honestly, at this point in time, looking at the division makeup, looking at the current roster and where they're drafting, I actually think the Giants are the best opening. The only tricky thing there is, are you a coach that has enough power to force out their current general manager who they are retaining right now? And there's only maybe one or two candidates that could do that. We saw this play out a couple years ago, or a year ago, I guess, where everybody thought a GM was safe, and then in order to land the head coach, he's like, no, I want my guy. And so if Harbaugh says, I'll take the Giants gig, but Joe Schoen cannot be the GM anymore, that's the only coach I think that could cause the Giants maybe to pivot to a different general manager. But I actually think with Malik Neighbors coming back from injury, something there with maybe Cam Scatterbo and Jackson Dart, knowing what they have on the defensive side of the ball, knowing where they're drafting, I think that the Giants are the number one job on the market outside of Baltimore, right?
See, I think the Giants are a very good job, but I mean, I think it's kind of like the college football playoffs. There's one team that stands alone above the rest, and that's the Baltimore Ravens. The Baltimore job is the absolute best job available right now because of, one, you've got an MVP, a two-time MVP at quarterback, and you've got a good foundation in place. And I don't just mean that from roster construction. I mean that as a franchise. The Ravens do not move on from head coaches very often. Since they became a franchise, it's been Billick and Harbaugh, and that's it. Like, they don't move on from coaches. They're the Steelers in a sense, where it's like, they're always going to be good, and you know who their head coach is going to be. I think if you take that job at the Ravens, you are going to have the front office around you, like full support, and they're going to do everything in their power to make you at the top of the sport year in and year out. I think Harbaugh had a large part of that, but I do think, like, really that's a job where it's like, if you get a Stefanski in there, or if you get almost any of these candidates that are floating around, that they'll also find that success in Baltimore. I just think it's a good, stable franchise. That is one of the few franchises on this list that has been able to sustain success after finding it.
Yeah, the Lamar Jackson part of it is why that's the job at the top of the list. I just think the Giants are positioned better than some of these other ones, where you look at Cleveland, we talked about the issue with Miami in the quarterback spot, or, Atlanta's in a tricky spot as well. And I know they just announced today that Matt Ryan is going to be their senior vice president, I think it is, or president of football ops. They basically created this new position for Matt Ryan. And I'm always fascinated how this stuff works when you talk about former greats within organizations coming back and getting front office roles. I'm not saying Matt Ryan's going to be bad at it. I wish him well. He might turn out to be awesome at it. But as we discussed in the past, there's no guarantee just because you were a great leader in the huddle that you're suddenly a great front office mind as well. Maybe he will be. There's a long list of sports figures that were great athletes that turned out to be terrible front office guys. So I think that's a little interesting with Matt Ryan heading down, leaving his CBS sports gig, understandably so, to go be a high-end level executive, I should say, with the Atlanta Falcons.
Well, speaking of TV guys that are, maybe getting interviews, where like the Titans are at as a franchise. Like, obviously, like I said earlier, this is the time of year where it is request a formal interview season, and you're seeing teams float names out there for interviews for their head coaching openings, and I think the Titans are the one team that on the grid of all of the head coaching possibilities out there. The Titans are the only one that have checked off literally, and this is not a joke, every single box of every candidate out there the Titans have requested an interview for. The most surprising being Jason Garrett. Like,
right.
What? Jason Garrett hasn't coached in the NFL since 2019 as a head coach. I mean, he was with the Giants as an OC in 2021. But like, last time Jason Garrett was a head coach of an NFL team, we didn't know what H1N1 masks were. Like, it's been a minute since the guy who creepily stares into the camera every Sunday night has been on the sidelines, and the Titans are like, yeah, we're gonna do it. Which, like, I think there's good and bad there. I think there's good in the sense that you are making sure you leave no stone unflipped, right? You were checking every avenue for the possibility of the next head coach. And where the Titans are at as a franchise right now, and other teams on this list too, like, like the Browns, they should be doing this as well. They should be leaving no stone left unturned. However, there are some stones that aren't necessarily stones anymore. And Jason Garrett is one of them. Like, what are you doing? Like, that just seems to me like a waste of time. Am I wrong?
There's no way Jason Garrett's getting a head coaching gig there, I don't think. But I typically don't care about the casting a wide net. I do think you can learn a lot by talking to individuals. Certainly, if we're talking about an NFL job, I kind of agree with it just in general. I think it's always great to interview a wide cast of characters, if you will. I think sometimes you also might be surprised, when you interview somebody. Mike Borgonzi's the GM there. They've had all year, really. I mean, I know they couldn't interview people back in week 8 or whatever, but I mean, Callahan's been out since what, first or second week of October, I think it was, something like that.
Yes, I think it was that after week 6 started 1-5, okay, and then got canned. Yeah.
So they've had plenty of time to probably put together this list. And as you know, it's a relationship business like anything else. And so, I don't know this to be a fact, but, maybe Borgonzi's got it. His agent maybe is got this guy as a client. And so, I think there's some of it is also a little bit of a, courtesy interview might take place with some of these guys as well.
Yeah. What do you think Jason Garrett was thinking when he got the call? He's like, wait, me? Why not request an interview with Maria Taylor, while you're at it? Why not, if we're just getting people off of TV, let's get Emu, the Limu, and Doug, let's get, why not get Coach Klein out of FC?
Yeah, you mentioned these names, obviously joking, but as you were saying that, I'm like, who we didn't hear anything about this year, but I felt like the prior 3 cycles as a GM, Louis Riddick. Remember, his name was coming up all the time.
Yeah,
I think
right.
Louis Riddick is really sharp and probably should be a GM in this league. But this cycle, I feel like there's been no noise. But his name, somebody kept pushing his name out there for 2 or 3 GM cycles, and now I don't feel like that's mentioned whatsoever.
Yeah, and another name, too, that was always thrown around, too, a guy that you're very familiar with, Eric Bieniemy. That was a name that was for 2 or 3 coaching cycles was a head coaching possibility, and now all of a sudden nowhere. And he's the running backs coach in Chicago right now, and that run game is strong. Like, Eric Bieniemy has had success everywhere he's gone. I'm surprised he hasn't gotten more looks for the head coaching opportunities or even OC opportunities.
We could talk a long, long period of time about Eric Bieniemy.
I bet.
Covered him in Kansas City, and you're right. I think he's doing a hell of a job in Chicago. And maybe this is a conversation for a few weeks from now because it's probably a little more too specific to Kansas City. But his name is coming up to be the OC again in Kansas City potentially with Matt Nagy's contract expiring. And I am adamantly against that. By the way. Not that
really?
I don't think he did a nice job in the past. I'm not a big believer in just running things back and bringing it back people that were once with an organization. I think he's a great disciplinary guy, and this team lacked that here in Kansas City this year, and I think he can help them there as a position coach. I'll push back on he's had success everywhere he went. He was in Washington.
That's a good point.
There were a lot of stories that players couldn't stand the guy. I think what happens with that is he's used the term to describe other people as competitive pricks. That's what he has said. And I think he is that as well. And that, by the way, it doesn't mean it's a terrible thing. I think it's easy to do if you're around a winning culture. If you're trying to establish that with a losing team, I think players will push back. If you already have winning in place, it works. And people will say the offense was better with Eric Bieniemy in Kansas City. And it's a fact. It was. But I think it is also leaving out a ton of other elements to the situation. One, the league has shifted philosophically. Running backs are more valuable now than they were then. Teams have played, 2 high safety looks much more differently now than what they were back then. The Chiefs had a different wide receiver room back then. And yet Matt Nagy is like this polarizing name that in Kansas City, nobody seems to like anymore. You've told me, we've been talking about Nashville. People are worried that he's going to become the head coach there for the Titans. And I guess I don't get it. I'm guess more of a Matt Nagy defender, oddly enough, than others. At this point
Okay.
in time.
All right. We found him. We found one. We found a Nagy defender out here in these streets.
I might be the only one.
I am seeing this breaking news right here. The Tennessee Titans have formally requested an interview with Newby, the offensive coordinator of the Little Giants, most known for drawing up the emancipation of Puerto Rico. So, okay, so I guess to add him to the list of potential candidates out there.
Yeah, I don't know where Matt Nagy will end up. He's got ties to Mike Borgonzi there in Tennessee. I'm not saying he's this perfect candidate. I just think he's taken a lot of heat for an offense in Kansas City that he doesn't call the plays for. And that's not saying he doesn't have a role and doesn't mean that he doesn't make mistakes. But I think people have tried to rewrite history of his time in Chicago a bit as well. That's all.
Yeah. Well, I just hope that if it is Nagy, Titans fans will probably take that in stride. You can't see my eyes glowing on radio, but if
I
you're
can't wait
watching
to talk
YouTube
about
and
it if it
Twitch,
happens. Yeah. I know I will have a differing opinion than most if that in fact actually happens. He's Austin Huff, and yes, watch on YouTube and Twitch so you can see Austin's reaction anytime I bring up Matt Nagy's name on the show. This is BetMGM Game Day on Westwood One Sports. Up next, excited to have our next guest join us here. Bobby Bones, one of the great personalities, going to join us to talk some NFL postseason, and we'll get into how we see some of these games playing out next here on Westwood One Sports.
BetMGM Game Day. Make it legendary on Westwood One Sports. checkdowns, the big games. BetMGM Game Day continues on Westwood One Sports.
Back here on BetMGM Game Day, Alex Gold, Austin Huff with you, and I've got a little bit of beef with Austin later on in the show. We'll get to based off of the Golden Locks that we debuted last week. And
I told you
we're on the same page. Yeah, man. I knew I was in trouble.
You fade me. Always fade me. Yes, I never take my betting advice at all. If I pick one way, go against the grain, because otherwise it's just money out of your own pocket.
1.5 shows in, man, I'm learning very quickly. Again, it's never a good thing if I have a bet that you also are on. And so we went 0 for last week, which is a great start. You know, you're trying to debut a segment called Goldilocks, and here we are 0-2 out of the gate. So we'll see. It could go in the complete opposite direction as well. So we'll get to those a little bit later on in the show. But excited to go out and welcome in one of the great media personalities in the business, a New York Times bestselling author. You can check out his work as well on the sports side of things with Matt Castle, former NFL quarterback, co-host of Lots to Say, Mr. Bobby Bones on Twitter, X, whatever we're calling it these days. Bobby, great to have you on the show. If people are watching on YouTube and Twitch as well, everybody behind the scenes seems to love your hoodie you're wearing today, repping Chicago.
I'm a big Cubs fan. I actually wasn't pandering at all to Austin. I just am a big Cubs fan. And, you know, the games today, speaking of Chicago, like I was looking at the weather because I also am placing my bets. I did a segment on my podcast, I guess 2 days ago, where I was actually looking at the amount of money that I've won or lost over 2025 because I like to have full transparency with my audience. And through July of last year, I was in the positive. Not much, but in the positive. And, you know, when you bet on games, it's for entertainment purposes only. Like, bet if you have it, don't bet if you don't, right? Between July and December 31st, I lost $24,000. So that being said, I was looking at the games. I was looking at the games tonight, and they keep moving the over-under down, the Chicago and Green Bay game, because it looks like it's just windy and cold and terrible there.
Yep.
So today, I think it's going to be two games that visually are unappealing because the Panthers suck and the weather, the wind is going to be terrible in Chicago. But thanks for having me on. Really, really excited to be here.
Well, you bring up the Panthers. Correct me if I'm wrong, but on the Bobby Bones show earlier this year, you adopted them as your team because you don't have an NFL allegiance. You're a massive Arkansas Razorbacks fan, but you didn't have an NFL like any ties to an NFL team. I mean, you work and live in Nashville, but I understand you not going with the Titans, and you ultimately ended up with the Panthers. Are we still in on the Panthers? Are we going to be watching that game at 4:30 today?
Yeah, we continue pounding. That's one thing I've done for years. I just keep pounding, as the Panthers say. I grew up, and everybody was a Cowboys fan in Arkansas because Jerry Jones is a massive Arkansas contributor. He played for Arkansas. We won our last national championship. But they were winning when I was a kid. And the one thing about me is I am just not a winner. So I never had an NFL team. And I work for the NFL now, which is wild to work for the NFL and not have a favorite team. So I interviewed all the candidates, and I selected the Carolina Panthers. And I believe that I was the reason they continue to pound even harder. And, yeah, we're going to hope for a win today.
You mentioned
just barely squeaking into the playoffs.
You mentioned the weather, man, and how that can impact tonight's game in Chicago. It feels like, you know, if you're just basing it off of weather, and I don't know how much stock we're going to put in that, but from a betting angle, doesn't that give an edge to Chicago with that rushing attack with Monangai and Swift and what we've been able to see Ben Johnson do?
I mean, you would think so, but they didn't run that well against Detroit. So, you know, I'm not quite sure what's going to happen as far as it. I don't like cold weather at all. I don't even like watching players be in cold weather because it makes me uncomfortable thinking of how uncomfortable they are. It's like my dogs. If I hate having to hold when I have to go pee. So if I think my dogs are locked up too much, I'm uncomfortable that they may have to go pee. The same reason I watch cold weather games and just feel terrible for them. So I don't know. It's two teams, though, that I feel like they're polar bears, like they grow up in it, so it's not a big deal to them. I think if it were another team coming into Chicago, it'd be completely different. But the Packers are a favorite, and which would seem crazy, except for Jordan Love didn't play the last game because the Bears took the cheap shot and knocked him out. It looked like a cheap shot to me. I'm going to say that if I'm a Packer tonight, I'm coming in. Maybe I let it roll a little longer. I think that the Packers being a favorite is kind of wild to me. That they're a 1.5, I think, point favorite in Chicago. But yeah, cold weather games, I don't know how to judge them. Windy games, I hate betting them, so I'm probably just going to sit this one out.
Well, it's not cold weather game. It's if you flip on the Weather Channel right now, they'll literally it is bear weather in Chicago. So I feel like you cannot have. It's against the law to have a game at Soldier Field and have it not just be miserable conditions. Which, by the way, does your dog have to go pee right now? How's he doing right now?
No, I wake up at least once a night. I do a morning show. I start it way early, so I usually wake up and he's okay. I just have trouble watching other people suffer. So, which is why I struggle with the Titans. They're all suffering all the time. And people ask me, why don't you root for the Titans? It is a terrible organization. And I heard you guys talking about who's going to coach. I think it's whoever will accept the job. Because who in their right mind would want to take a job with an organization that has continuously failed the coaches that they've brought in? It hasn't been the coaches that failed. It's been an organizational failure. So much so that the owner had to come out and say, okay, here's what we're going to do this year. She released a statement that said, here's what we're going to do. We're going to let our GM be the GM. That's a statement.
Yeah, right.
If you have to say that.
Right.
So maybe Jason Garrett is the only option. That's the last person that'll take the job. So that's why I'm not really a Titans fan. There's no real reason here to root for them.
Can I make a formal plea for Bobby Bones to become the next head coach of the Tennessee Titans? Because, look, Bobby, wherever you go, you just win. I know you said you grew up as not a winner, and maybe it's karma for, Arkansas struggles so Bobby Bones can succeed, because we are a Dancing with the Stars champion. We are the MVP of the MLB Celebrity All-Star Game. I mean, Bobby, I think the Titans need exactly what you have.
I would agree with that, but I injured my ankle like 4 months ago, so I'm not really going to be able to be back in time for camp. I injured it playing a pickleball tournament, and I still won the tournament. I just want to brag on myself for a second because I tore the cartilage, and I was playing in a 3.5 level tournament, which for those that don't know what that means, congratulations, you're cool if you don't know what that means. So I played, I tore the cartilage in my ankle, I finished, I won the tournament, and here I am with you guys today, but I will not be making it for the Titans. It's the Titans, the Browns. They're such poorly run organizations that you have to get the right guy to come in. Stefanski was an awesome coach. He was coach of the year twice. And if you were tiering these coaches that are available going into, and I heard you guys talking about this a minute ago, and jobs, I think Harbaugh's one, right? I think everybody's probably going to want Harbaugh. Listen, I think if the Packers lose, I think LaFleur's out of a job. I think LaFleur's going to be in demand, but it's also, I think a lot of these teams, like the Dolphins, I don't think they would have moved on if they didn't think they had a Harbaugh or a Stefanski or someone already lined up. The same with the Packers, and it'll be interesting to see what the Ravens do. I mean, Harbaugh's been the head coach there since you guys were born. You guys don't even remember a different coach. You came out of the womb with Harbaugh being the coach of the Ravens.
Well,
yeah, briefly,
you talk about
Brian Billick and Joe Flacco. That was about it. Before then. Or I guess Joe Flacco was of course with Harbaugh, but it was Billick before that, and that's about it.
Brian Billick is the teams with Belichick to me. When I think of him, he's Timu Belichick. How he looked, he was pretty good. Everything about him, and he was pretty good on television too. But yeah, the Ravens have been super consistent head coaches, so you feel like whoever they want to go with, they feel like it'll be someone that they can bet on a long run. I mean, Ozzie Newsome has been there, forever? I mean, he's been that guy, and he's been the one fundamental consistency with Baltimore. So I think they probably already have a plan in place as well.
Yeah, the teams that have the head coaching vacancies this year it's rinse, wash, and repeat every other year. Every 2-3 years, they're right here in the same boat. And another team that normally is in that cycle is the Chicago Bears, but they found their guy. To your point, Bobby, they have poor ownership. Things tend to, not turn up well in Chicago, but then they found Ben Johnson, and in a season, he's able to turn it all around. It's wild to watch.
I think a guy like Ben Johnson, and you can even look at a Dave Canales in Carolina, that organization would be lumped in with the organizations that usually don't do a good job for their coaches or their players. I think it takes a special kind of player or personality to shift that. You even see that with Joe Burrow with the Bengals. Now, he is not the coach, obviously, but they have
Right.
had a ton of quarterbacks come through because if the organization is so inconsistent, you have to have a master of consistency come in to almost make that thing even. And so these organizations that start in the hole, like a Titans, like the teams we just talked about, like they have to get someone to
Yeah.
come in that is so dialed in and ahead of the game, which is why the Browns even won, is because Stefanski was so good. They won a playoff game, even though they are one of the worst run organizations in football.
Yeah.
Bobby Bones joined us here on BetMGM Game Day. What about the next couple weeks? Ultimately, who do you think is coming out of the AFC and the NFC and meeting in Santa Clara?
What's crazy is it's the most wide open that I have ever seen it, as far as both sides at once. Obviously, I think the Broncos have the best defense in the AFC. I mean, I don't just think that. It's not like I'm making a hot take. I mean, statistics show the Broncos have the best defense in the AFC. And the Texans are right there. The Texans are awesome. So probably 1-2 or 2-1, however you look at them. It would be wild to see an organization like Houston go far. But when your defense is that good, defense travels, which is pretty cool. But I have put $1,000 future on the 49ers a long time ago. So like I said, I lost $24,000 in the last half of last year. That bet pays me $23,000 out if I hit. So from the NFC side, I need San Francisco. I needed them to beat the freaking Seahawks, and they didn't do that. That was an ugly game. So I'm picking San Francisco only because I need to break even, boys.
Yeah.
So, Bobby, you've got the podcast with Matt Castle, the Lots to Say, and I got to ask you a question. Like when you're recording that podcast, a lot of times you guys do it in person. Do you ever just get lost in his eyes? That is a good-looking man.
Yeah, here's the thing about Matt Castle. He is tall. He is good-looking. He is kind. I'm attracted to almost all things about him. If he wasn't a dude, that's the only thing that keeps me from like. But he's like the greatest guy, and also he is a quarterback. And when the NFL, they came to me and said, "Hey, find a partner for the show. We want you to do this podcast and do this YouTube show." And the thing about quarterbacks, just generally speaking, if they lasted in the league, it really doesn't matter the level they performed at. But if they lasted in the league a long time, they're so studious. And the guy comes in, charming, great looking, tall, and is always so studied up. He also worked for the Big Ten. So there's nothing I can say bad about him except he's everything. It sounds like a country song. He's everything to me.
Yeah, right.
Bobby, we appreciate you coming on the show. We really do, and it's great to have you on. And, good luck with the Niners bet, I guess, is what we can say to leave you on. Now that we know you need it. You need it more than I need any bet today. Well, Niners need to shock the world a little bit. I don't feel like anybody's picking them today or tomorrow against the Eagles.
I'm not. I pick them for life. Listen, I think they'll beat Philadelphia. I do. I think they'll go to Philadelphia and they'll win that game. And if they don't, I'll chase. All right, thank you, boys.
There you go. Bobby Bones joining us here.
Keep pounding, Bobby.
BetMGM Game Day. He's all in on the Panthers, all in on the 49ers as well. Of course, give him a follow. I'm sure you might already anyway, at Mr. Bobby Bones on Twitter and X, joining us on Westwood One Sports. Yeah, man, look, the 49ers, that's a game we haven't even got to yet today. My worry with them is just they're so banged up heading into this. It's not even so much that the Eagles are playing great football heading into the postseason. It's just that San Francisco, and maybe it's some Kyle Shanahan magic, it's just that the 49ers have injuries all over the place, and how are they protecting Brock Purdy tomorrow at 4:30?
Yeah, I just spoke ad nauseum last week about my love for Kyle Shanahan and the job that he has done this year. But my goodness, it's not a great matchup to have to go into Lincoln Financial Field in January, because I think they're like 11-4 at home since like 2002, or since that place was built. That is a very, very tough building to win at as a road team. So I don't know. Kyle Shanahan's been able to keep this train on the tracks all season long. It's only a matter of whether or not he can get in and survive really against the Eagles. But it's an Eagles team that has not looked like Eagles teams of the past. So it is. I don't know. To me, I think that I would take the 49ers to cover in that game.
We'll get our official picks on that game. You can see if you're watching on YouTube and Twitch over at BetMGM, the Niners 6-point dogs against Philadelphia. Up next, though, who would have thought we'd get Snoop Dogg, Kyle Shanahan, and Bill Belichick all part of the sound of the week? But that's what we have next here on Westwood One Sports.
You're locked into BetMGM Game Day, Westwood One Sports. Hot takes, real stakes. The weekend starts now with BetMGM Game Day on Westwood One Sports.
Coming up in about 15 minutes, we'll get right back into wild card action today. We'll start going game by game, some of our favorite bets involved in those games, and how do we see it playing out on the NFC and the AFC side. Wild card weekend, first game up, Rams-Panthers, 4:30 Eastern time. Then we get a great one, or what should be a great one, in Chicago with the Packers and Bears. And then tomorrow we get that Eagles-Niners game we were discussing a little bit. We get a Sunday night game involving the Patriots and Chargers. We really haven't even touched on that game yet. And then early in the day, maybe the game that everybody's talking about the most, and that's Jacksonville and Buffalo. Implications legacy-wise for Josh Allen. What does it mean for Trevor Lawrence? Liam Cohen doing a great job in year one. And then we got Monday Night Football, where Mike Tomlin and the Steelers hosting DeMeco Ryan and the Houston Texans. But it is time to get to some of the sounds of the week. We do this each and every week here on BetMGM Game Day. Alex Gold, Austin Huff with you. And we start with a little Snoop Dogg, who is doing a great job on NBC Sports' coverage, because we know the Olympics are right around the corner as well, and he's been heavily involved in that the last couple cycles through the Olympics. And it was the Warriors and Clippers a couple nights ago where Snoop gave us a little play-by-play of Steve Kerr getting ejected, courtesy of the NBA on Peacock.
Back him up, GP, back him up, Steve ready to fire on him.
He's already gone.
Steve banging Inglewood right now. Inglewood, get him, Steve. You and Inglewood, Steve. The Arizona Wildcat that came out and look at him.
That was just one of many moments, man. One of many moments where Snoop was sensational. Look, you got the inventory that you have if you're the NBA of 82 games for these teams, plus more, of course, if you're just NBC. And I think they're doing a great job, the new NBA partners, by the way, Amazon included, on trying to refresh and bring some new ideas to the NBA coverage. And NBC going all in with Snoop on, and it did start with the Olympics a couple years ago, but now having him involved, we all know he's a huge Steelers fan as well, so he's been on some of their Sunday Night Football broadcasts. I think this is so smart by NBC to have Snoop involved. If you're a casual NBA fan, why should I care about a random, I think this was like Tuesday night or Monday night, I guess it would have been. Why not have him involved in these broadcasts?
Find someone who loves you as much as NBC loves Snoop D-O-double-G. This is him doing this game for Peacock in the middle of the regular season for the NBA is the Costco sample. You know, you walk around Costco, you get the little samples. That is the sample that you get before getting the entire palette that we are about to have of Snoop Dogg this year, because it is a Winter Olympics year, as you said, and we're about to get an influx of Snoop. I have a feeling like I'm just worried, though. Okay, can I convey some worry with Snoop Dogg and the exposure we're set to get with him? To me, it's like watching Hangover 3. You know, is it funny? Sure. Yes, it is. But we've kind of seen two other movies that are exactly the same. And I just don't want Snoop to go the way of like Kevin Hart in commercials or whatever, you know? I don't want the overexposure. You know, those Cheez-Its commercials were funny until they played them in every commercial break during college football season. Like, I just don't want the same fate to happen for Snoop. That's my only concern, okay? I think it was funny. I think it was great. And I love Snoop. And I think it is a welcomed change. Just the execs at these networks they're like, the kids like it? It went viral? Let's give them more. You know, like let's just turn on the fire hydrant.
You know what, though? And I hear you, and I think that's more than fair. My only thing is, as long as, look, Snoop or pick any other celebrity that might be in a broadcast team moving forward, I think when they're part of games that are just kind of, you know, in the middle of a season, they're not, like, I wouldn't want Snoop during the play-by-play broadcast of the AFC title game here in 2 weeks. No, absolutely not.
Right.
But Snoop or any celebrity, if it's baseball where there's 162 games of inventory to work with, by all means, you know, put him on baseball broadcasts as well. NBA, you got so many games. I don't want him game 3 of the NBA Finals. You know, I don't want that. I want, you know, Reggie Miller or whoever for that by himself with, you know, Mike Tirico or whoever, whatever the broadcast pairing would be. That's what I want. But when you have these random games, I think there's no harm.
No, it's
I was
that's
more
a great
interested
point.
in and I'm a casual NBA fan, so I'll watch maybe 2 or 3 NBA games a week. That's kind of where I'm at. I don't have an NBA team that I root for, so I'm very casual when it comes to that. So Monday night, when there was no Monday Night Football on, and randomly, local time for me, I think it was like 9:45 or 10 o'clock at night, and I'm like, oh wait, there's Clippers and Warriors are on. And it turned out to be a good finish, by the way, on top of it. And Snoop's on the broadcast. I was way more interested in the game, unless I have a few bucks on it. Those are the 2 ways that I can find ways to be interested in a random NBA game.
Could you imagine Snoop and Collinsworth in a booth for the AFC or NFC championship game? Now, here's a guy.
It might be. Look, you know what? If we end up, I'll tell you this. If we end up with a Super Bowl, somehow this won't happen, and it's Panthers and Jaguars, then they can add Snoop on the broadcast because I'll need it.
Okay. All right. Yeah. It's a welcome change. Like maybe do something along the lines of what they do with the Manning cast. Have him in for like a quarter,
Perfect.
a few drives. Yeah. Just a change of pace.
And I don't know how many times in broadcasting somebody's gone from discussing Snoop Dogg to right into Bill Belichick, but here we are for the sounds of the week.
Professional segue.
The Let's Go podcast where Belichick was talking about whether or not it's true he could try to come back to the NFL.
You're the greatest coach in NFL history. Obviously, your name's going to come up. And whether or not you're interested or not interested, they're going to say you're interested so that this kid won't come to the University of North Carolina.
Oh, I've heard plenty of that. We've heard plenty of that, Jim.
Would you have an interest?
Yeah, nothing's changed. I'm where I was a month ago. I'm here in North Carolina, and I really appreciate the love and support that we've gotten from the community down here, from the school, Chancellor Roberts, ADs, Bubba Cunningham, Steve Newmark, working with Mike Lombardi and our staff here. We're building a good program. I'm excited about the direction we're headed in.
Nothing says I'm excited about Nothing says I'm excited about the direction we're heading in more than I'm excited about the direction we're heading in. I'm very excited. This is I'm at UNC and I'm going to stay at UNC and nothing's changed. Nothing's changed whatsoever.
The ship of the NFL has sailed for Bill Belichick. I think we know he couldn't get hired in the coaching cycle before. Now, since then, I will say in fairness, Atlanta was the job they were interviewing him for, and they've already fired, Raheem Morris, who they hired instead of Bill Belichick. Not saying Belichick would have had more success necessarily, because I think at this point in his career, there's certainly a lot more to the entire package of Bill Belichick than there was 5 years ago. We all know what's been going on with Jordan and everything there at UNC. So I don't think he's ever coaching in the NFL. I think, like, despite what he said there, I think if an NFL team offered him a job tomorrow, he would take it. I just think the league has moved on from Bill Belichick. We got 25% of the league having job openings, and I don't think he's going to get a single interview. I think it's done. Meanwhile, he just continues to build up like a retirement home there at UNC. They just went out and brought in Bobby Petrino to now join the staff. He's already got Lombardi with him as his basically GM of football there at UNC. Like they just keep bringing in older and older people to join him at UNC. So it's, other than Jordan, that's about it.
Yeah, we're almost to the point where the ship for college football coaching has sailed for Bill Belichick. Like, I mean, it's not great in Chapel Hill. And my only question is, do you think Jim Gray had to clear that question with Jordan Hudson before firing that one at Belichick?
She might have been on the other line, or listening in on the line. I don't know if it was on video or a phone call. I only have the clip. I don't know. If it was video, then she was probably in the room. Otherwise, might have been on the phone line. And that's. I will say this about UNC. I guess a slight bit of credit. I thought they actually finished as a much better football team than they started. That is a sign of coaching. We'll see how it all pans out. I know they didn't hire him to win 5 games, but the way it started, everybody thought he was going to get fired 3 or 4 weeks into the season, and they did finish stronger. I guess we'll see what 2026 brings for the North Carolina Tar Heels, although your schedule is going to be tougher next year than what it was. It was a pretty weak, as we know, ACC this year. And now good luck in 2026.
And an entire offseason of Belichick having to recruit, just going into people's homes. Look, the things that we're doing in Chapel Hill are unlike anything, and I think you should really come and play for our program. Ma'am, if you don't mind, if I have a moment with your son in the living room, I think he is a fine young man, and he's going to do some great things. I've never been more excited for the things that we've got going on in Chapel Hill. Yeah, okay, I'll go play for
flash
that.
the Super Bowl rings. Just flash the Super Bowl rings. I think that's all.
Yeah, that's true.
Just make sure you're wearing all. What is it? 6 of them or whatever he's got. 7 of them. 6 of them, I guess it would be. And make sure you're good to go at that point in time. Those are some of the sounds of the week here on BetMGM Game Day, and we'll have plenty of time later on in the offseason, I'm sure, to talk about the ACC, who suddenly, by the way, has a team in the national title game where the Miami Hurricane are going to be taking on the Indiana Hoosiers, although they are 7.5-point underdogs heading into that matchup. All right, coming up next, though, I do want to get right back into Wild Card Weekend, man. That's what everybody's looking for. We're a few hours away from kickoff there in Charlotte, where the Panthers are hosting the Rams. Let's go game by game and start with tonight's game with Bears and the Packers, give some of our official predictions, and also get into a juicy Sunday lineup right here on the Westwood One Sports.
You're locked into BetMGM Game Day, Westwood One Sports. kickoff to cash out. Your weekend sports destination is BetMGM Game Day on Westwood One Sports.
A great Saturday here on BetMGM Game Day. Alex Gold, Austin Huff with you. We will get to the SEC and college football, and of course a title game that does not feature an SEC team for the third year in a row. Where does that leave the SEC moving forward? I know Austin's got some thoughts about that, and we will get to them coming up in 20 minutes or so. But wild card weekend begins today in the National Football League with the Rams and Panthers. We already gave some of our thoughts there. I want to pick back up with the Bears and the Packers, and not so much about Matt LaFleur. I think we already got into, what could happen for him with the contract and heading into what could be a lame duck season, and nobody wants that to happen. So it's either going to be an extension or they're going to part ways. That's, whether they win or lose tonight. We'll see how that plays out. We might have to wait another week to find out what the scenario could be. And I say wait another week because are you on board with the Bears or the Packers tonight? I agree with, our guest earlier, Bobby Bones, who was talking about the weather and how that's going to impact this game. I think a lot of people are going to look at the Bears and say, well, their run game is so much better than the Packers' run game with what Ben Johnson has built there, and kind of trying to have like a basically a poor man's version of what the Lions had a year ago with Montgomery and Gibbs, and now he's got it with Swift and Monungai, and it's been so effective, and they haven't had to rely always on Caleb Williams, although he has made some big-time throws when they've needed it in some of these unbelievable finishes, including against Green Bay not too long ago. I'm on Green Bay in this game, Austin. I really am. I think Jordan Love, who has not been healthy, is healthy now heading into this game. I think Josh Jacobs actually is going to go out and have one of his better games in a bit. He's not had a good back half of the season, and I'll take a little bit of the experience. Not that Jordan Love has this great playoff record by any means, but I'll still take the experience that a Matt LaFleur has, that a Jordan Love has, that a Josh Jacob has, to be ready for this unbelievable atmosphere I'm sure they're about to walk into tonight at Soldier Field.
Yeah, this game has a little bit of what happens when a stoppable force meets a movable object, because the Packers have been reeling here in the back half of the season, and the Bears haven't been much better, at least over the last 3 weeks. They've their last 3 games, they've been outscored 47-21 in the first half of games. They running 66 fewer plays and losing the time of possession battle by 10 minutes. So the Bears have been getting off to slow starts every single week, and I think that's a big proponent. I think right away, after probably the first 3 drives, you'll be able to tell who's going to win this game tonight. And if the Bears come out flat, look, they've done it all season. So I got to give credit to them where, they've been nothing for as many as 3 quarters in a game, and then make those, even against the Lions, they were doing nothing, zilch, for 3.5 quarters. And then they come out, they tie the game up, and of course lose on that walk-off field goal. But that's been the Bears' MO all season. And I just worry when it comes time to playoff game if that's sustainable, if they can keep pulling the rabbit out of the hat. And I don't know. I'm leaning towards the Bears, but as we've learned on this show, the giant PSA, the Surgeon General's warning for this show is fade me by all means necessary. So if I'm taking the Bears, then you're probably right in taking the Packers, Alex.
Well, I think the Packers in this game can win. My thought of them bigger picture and representing the NFC, that to me has ended. Micah Parsons is hurt. When Tucker Kraft went down, they're not the same offense. Those are all problems, and why also the Bears can win tonight, and certainly would not surprise me if they do. But the Packers, I think in this given spot, to me, they have enough to go on the road and win here. I don't think the Packers have much of a run in them, though. Like that's if we want to talk about what do we think of the Packers beyond this weekend, if they're fortunate enough to get there, I don't think they have that anymore with some of the just crucial injuries that they have suffered. I think, if we look at the NFC and teams that can actually represent the NFC in the Super Bowl, I actually think there's only, 3 teams that can really do that. I think it's the Rams, I think it's the Seahawks, and I think it's the Eagles. And the Eagles are only because the talent is still so much in their favor, even if that team hasn't looked like a Super Bowl team this year. The talent's still there. Seattle has looked like a Super Bowl team, and the Rams, we have seen what Sean McVay has been able to do. Matthew Stafford playing at an MVP level. Puka has been one of the best receivers in football. So Green Bay, it's more about like win a wild card weekend, then I think they'll get axed immediately after, if in fact they pull this out. And the same thing for Chicago. I don't think Chicago has a deep run in them, not in year one with Ben Johnson. So that's the first game that I think will really have people feeling like NFL playoff football. I don't know if the Rams and Panthers are going to get us there, but I think the Packers and Bears will. And then we get to the entree, man. The entree on Sunday, and I think this is the game of the entire weekend, with the Jags hosting Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills. Liam Cohen in year one has been sensational, legitimate coach of the year candidate. The Jags are 1-point favorites at this point. This line has shifted around a little bit. I think if you shopped a bit, you could find the Bills were 1 point a favorite. I'm on Buffalo, by the way. Josh Allen, we all know the narrative here. No Burrow, no Mahomes, no Lamar. Got to get it done. Got to get over the hump. It is a wide open AFC. You're still the best quarterback in the AFC, even if Drake May might be the MVP this year. Josh Allen has not been the problem for the Bills. In his 0-4 record against Mahomes and all that, that has not been because Josh Allen hasn't performed well. And they might need him to put on the Super Bowl cape, the Superman cape to get to a Super Bowl, because this is not a Bills team that is anywhere near the best Bills team that they have brought to the show. But this path, I actually don't hate for them. Am I underrating Jacksonville? I think all year they have been. But are we buying Trevor Lawrence, who's playing his best football, to go and win a game in which I guess he's expected to win, if you at least look at the betting markets? I can't get there. I think Sean McDermott and Josh Allen get the road win and begin what they need, which is a 3+ road win streak to begin headed to a Super Bowl.
Liam Cohen has turned back the clock on Trevor Lawrence. He's made Trevor Lawrence I wouldn't be surprised if Trevor Lawrence trotted out to that field on Sunday wearing an orange jersey, because he is Clemson Trevor Lawrence. He is what we thought. He is finally what we thought we were getting when he was drafted at the top of the draft. And I feel like that all credit goes to Liam Cohen on that, because he's had 3 coaches prior to this that haven't been able to pull that out of him. And I feel like here's a nugget, though. However, I'll throw your way if anyone is looking for reasons as to why the Jaguars might win this game. Okay, it's not because of the Jaguars. It's not because of the Bills. It's because of the guys that wear the stripes in the middle. The Jaguars are the 3rd most penalized team in the NFL, and the referee Brad Allen and his crew are on this game. And the reason I bring that up is because they throw the fewest flags per game this season. So does that help the Jaguars? Does that help Liam Cohen and crew? Look, they're like, they can get away with a lot here in this game. So if you're looking for, I know every bettor out there is looking for those little nuggets as to why a team might win. Don't sleep on Brad Allen and crew in this one.
Definitely could play a role. I mean, I think you can come up with plenty of reasons why the Jags can win this game. I don't think anybody's surprised with the outcome one way or the other in this one. I'm just siding, and this doesn't always work out this way by any means. It's not that simple. We'd all be rich if it was this simple. But I'm going to take who I still think is the best quarterback in the AFC postseason this year, and that's Josh Allen.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand the Bills aren't as good as they have been. I'll still side with Allen. The point, though, you're making about the rest, the other part for Jacksonville, if you're trying to make the case for them, is they're one of the best, if not the best, rush defense in football. And what do the Bills do very well? James Cook, run game. Mm-hmm. I just think at least for one game on the road, maybe he can't do it for 2 more. One game on the road, Josh Allen is capable of carrying a football team. I think he's more likely to, take the hits than he was in the regular season. Maybe you're going to run out of bounds in week 12 if you're going for a first down. It's all on the line here. That bodes well, in my opinion, for Buffalo down there tomorrow afternoon.
You're 2 for 2. I'll say that, because I'm taking the Jaguars in this game. So you're going opposite of me. So things are looking good for you right now, Alex.
We'll see, man. We need a little bit more luck. It was not a good night betting last night for me either. I don't want to. I didn't have Oregon winning, but let's just say I had Oregon to cover, which was so stupid. In hindsight, with that ass kicking that Cignetti put on.
I don't even think they covered their receivers in that game.
No, I mean, you could alt spread. I mean, there was no number. There was no number where Oregon was covering last night whatsoever. All right, let's go to the middle game tomorrow. That, of course, is the Niners and the Eagles in Philadelphia, the NFC East champions. They're the only repeat division winner this year in the NFL. Talk about parity. Pretty crazy how it worked out. And it's funny. It's a division where they hadn't had back-to-back winners in 20 plus years, but they're the only back-to-back winner. Philadelphia 6-point favorites. This line settling there at BetMGM against the 49ers. And you and I both, I think, have a ton of respect for Kyle Shanahan and the job he did this year navigating all these injuries and what Brock Purdy's been able to do. But I think the injuries are too much here, and Philadelphia, to me, roster-wise, has the most talent in the NFC, maybe in all of football still, despite the results not being there. I actually am going with another favorite, and that's what's weird. I guess so far, am I going favorite? I guess the Bills are an underdog now, but for the most part, I'm going favorites throughout this wild card weekend, which might not be the right path, but I like Philadelphia quite a bit. I really don't think San Francisco is going to be able to withstand the defensive pressure that they're going to bring on Brock Purdy. And, yes, Trent Williams is healthier now. We talked a lot about that last week, and it played out that way, that Seattle was able to wreck him. Well, the Eagles may not be the Seahawks defense this year, but that Eagles defense is still pretty damn good. And I think that's a problem here for San Francisco.
Yeah, there's a reason this game has the lowest over-under of the week, or at least I guess tied for it, because this is just going to be all defense, right? I mean, this is an Eagles offense that is it doesn't make sense to me that not only a team that was in the Super Bowl last year, but a team with A.J. Brown, with Saquon Barkley, with Jalen Hurts even, is the 24th ranked offense in the league. That's like, how is that even possible to have so many good things? It's like I've got a Ferrari in my garage, and I usually drive it the speed limit. Like, that's how are the Eagles doing this? I think that's the one thing that I would say plays to the Niners' hand is, as Jalen Hurts goes, so do the Eagles. They're 11-2 when he doesn't throw an interception, but 0-3 when he does. So if they're able to get him to cough up the football, which he has done quite a bit this season, that I think will help. But you look to the flip side of the ball, and again, all credit to Kyle Shanahan for the job that he has done this season with keeping the wheels on the tracks with as many injuries as they have had. In fact, they may have even gotten to 4 more injuries just in the time I started talking. But that is just the way it's gone this season. But late in the year, past few weeks, they just have, it's kind of like they've been turning back into a pumpkin. And I don't think that the Niners are going to be able to take just going into Lincoln Financial, what did I say earlier? It's like 11-2 or 11-4 in the playoffs at Lincoln Financial over the years. Like, that's a tough place to play this time of year. And I do not envy the Niners. And I just think the Eagles somehow find enough to pull this one out.
Philadelphia, also another team to watch. I mean, if you buy into at least some of the rumors that are out there, we mentioned Matt LaFleur, we mentioned Sean McDermott, and what happens if they lose? There's at least some talk that if Nick Sirianni were to lose in Wild Card Weekend, could they be one of the surprise teams that decides to move in a different direction? I would be pretty surprised with that, given the fact they've been in back-to-back Super Bowls or will be going for back-to-back Super Bowls again, and are winners of a Super Bowl a year ago. So that would be more surprising than even Matt LaFleur getting fired, in my opinion.
Didn't the Eagles do that a few years ago, though? A year after
Doug Peterson
was in the Super Bowl. Yeah. So, I mean, look, they're no strangers to firing a guy a year after going to the Super Bowl. I don't know. We have our rooting interests, right, Alex? But I think you and I both agree, like, we root for team content above everything. And so if you want to fire a Matt LaFleur or a Nick Sirianni after this weekend and just stir up the coaching carousel even more, I'm kind of here for it. I don't want anyone to lose their livelihood or lose their job, because these are humans we are talking about, but I'm here for the chaos.
All about it, team chaos. All about it, man. And I think out of one of these coaches we're talking about today, though, whether it's Buffalo, whether it's Philly, whether it's Green Bay, I have a feeling one of those jobs is opening up after this weekend or in the next week, I guess. If you
man.
I really do. I think one of those opens up. I really believe that the Ravens kind of made it seem more acceptable, if you will, to move on. Like, you don't want to be the first. You don't want to be the first team. Like, why? Well, no. Everybody's kind of doing this now, and I think there's a little bit of truth to that. That Harbaugh being axed, despite his unbelievable track record, I think it makes it more acceptable, if you will, for a team like even Philadelphia or Buffalo or others to make a move, even if I tend to disagree. Like, I would retain all three of these coaches, honestly. Like,
sure.
I don't care. Even you told me Sean McDermott loses, Matt LaFleur loses, Nick Sirianni loses. I don't think they're all three losing. But if they did, I think I would hang on to all three of them.
Same. I'm the same way. And if I'm one of those teams with an opening, I would lob an interview request to Jason Garrett. Follow the lead of the Tennessee Titans and see if
I've learned that's your guy.
See if Jason Garrett's available.
Austin's a big fan of Jason Garrett. I've learned that.
I just think it's so
today.
funny. It is so funny that it's like you just know, like, an executive in the Titans front office was like watching Sunday Night Football Night in America, and they're just like, hey, yeah, didn't that guy used to coach? Let's bring him in for an interview. And it's just Jason Garrett creepily staring at the camera. I just don't. I think it's the funniest thing in the world, and I don't think there's going to be another team that gives him an interview request. And a quarter of the league has job openings right now.
Yeah, 25%, man. 25% of the National Football League. And you know what? Monday or Tuesday, if one of these coaches does get fired, that'll be the number one story in the NFL. It won't be that, the Rams won, or it won't be that Buffalo won or something like that. That's the power of the NFL. I do want to talk about Chargers and Patriots. Drake May, his first playoff appearance, what it means for Justin Herbert, and, of course, Mike Tomlin and the Steelers on Monday night hosting the Houston Texans. Plus, the SEC is sitting at home watching the Big Ten and the ACC in a national title game. What does that mean for the future of that conference? We'll get to that next here on BetMGM Game Day.
BetMGM Game Day, your weekend sports authority. Westwood One Sports. lines, headlines, and hard opinions. This is BetMGM Game Day on Westwood One Sports.
Alex Gold, Austin Huff with you. You guys can, of course, check out this show on the Westwood One Sports app, Odyssey app as well, and watch the video stream on YouTube and Twitch. We'll get to college football in just about 6 minutes or so. Looking at the national title game, which, of course, does not have a member of the SEC in it for a third year in a row. What does it actually mean for that conference moving forward? But I want to continue talking Wild Card Weekend. Austin, how about Sunday Night Football, man? We get the Chargers and the Patriots in Foxborough. Drake May's first ever postseason start. And he goes up against the Chargers team that just has had a terrible track record in the postseason. They're trying to exercise some of their demons. They've been playing on the road for starters throughout their really playoff appearances with Justin Herbert. They haven't had a home playoff game, I think, since 2010 against our producer Zach's New York Jets. I believe that'd be the Mark Sanchez days. It's been that long yeah. for the Chargers. They're 3.5-point dogs on the road in this spot. And I know you look at the history of quarterbacks making their first start against experienced quarterbacks, and it doesn't usually bode well. But Drake May, all he's done this year is find ways to win games, cover as well. When they've been a favorite of 3 or more points, he's 10-0 straight up and 8-2 against the spread. And yes, they have played one of the softest schedules in the NFL, and now it's playoff time, and they're playing a quality team in the Chargers. But I'm going to once again go with the favorite. The only question is, if you got this number at 3 instead of 3.5 and that key number of 3 and dealing with the hook here and whether or not that's going to get you if you believe it's a tight game. But I think the Chargers are too banged up, kind of similar to San Francisco, where Justin Herbert, one, he's hurt, right? He's got that brace or cast on his left hand for starters. And then his offensive line all year has been banged up. It's caused them to have to go with more multiple tight end sets, and Aronde Gadsden, who their young tight end, who's been a bright spot. They haven't really able to get him going as much. Ladd McConkey was this sensational rookie year, and he hasn't been able to have the same amount of success this year. I just think there's too many injuries to go around for the Chargers to go into Foxborough and win against the Mike Vrabel coach team tomorrow night.
Yeah, that and the fact that the Patriots are an absolute wagon. They are just so good. And, I will say this, though. I'm very interested to watch this game because of Mike Vrabel. For all the love that Mike Vrabel gets, he hasn't won a playoff game since that run that the Titans made to the AFC Championship back in 2019. Like that's, or I guess it was the January of 2020, but that's 6 years now since he has won in the playoffs. Now, with that said, the Patriots are dang good. To me, this is the most sure of a game that I am this weekend. I think the Patriots win this just outright. I think they are too good. The Chargers are too banged up. In fact, I will be willing to say that if the Patriots lose this game, I will come on BetMGM Game Day next Saturday, and I will lovingly sing the Kansas Jayhawks fight song. All right, because you are a KU guy.
Sing the fight
I'm
song.
a Mizzou guy. I will do it. That's how sure I am that the Patriots are winning this game. If they lose, I will do that. Much to the chagrin of probably everyone listening, but I will do it, and because it's not going to happen. It's not happening. The Patriots aren't losing this game.
Or I want you to have to do that because I'm with you on the Patriots, but I also kind of want you to I want to win the bet, but now you've added.
Right.
It's a win-win situation. I can't lose. I like this now. Thank you. You set me up nicely for Sunday Night Football.
You're going to be the only guy in Kansas City wearing Chargers gear on Sunday night. Just going yeah, let's go Bolts,
And trust me,
I don't think
this is
it's
somebody
not
that
happening.
Typically, yeah, look, I'm with you. I'm not as confident, I guess, maybe as you are that it's like this lock. I'm with you, though. I think the Patriots are just flat out the better football team here. And, Drake May's playing at such a high level. That rush attack of Travion Henderson and Ramondre Stevenson is awfully impressive. We know Amari and Hampton popped up on the injury report a little bit for the Chargers. They just had it's a typical Chargers story, man. They always seemingly have these injuries that derail their season. And I know Justin Herbert takes a lot of heat, and it's like, hey, man, no excuses. But I'll be honest, man, at some point, what do you expect the guy to do when you see the injuries he's been dealing with? And he's, having to try to take over some of these games. I'm worried that, he's just going to also be re-aggravating that left hand injury if he gets hit while he's running, which happened again this past week, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm with you on the Patriots in this game. I'll be fairly surprised if they were to lose at home. I believe the Patriots are representing the AFC in the Super Bowl, so that's how I just feel about them. I view the Patriots as a team that's going to make a run and surpass the Broncos ultimately when it's said and done.
I will say this though, I did find a very interesting TikTok, probably while sitting on the toilet at some point, just scrolling mindlessly, where a woman, a sleep specialist, was talking about how in the NFL you will more likely see a team, either if an East Coast team is playing a West Coast team, the advantage always lies in the West Coast team's favor because we are at our best, I guess, athletically, or even just with our minds and everything, from the hours of, I want to say it was like 4 to 10 or 4 to 8 p.m. or something. And if you think about it, West Coast time zone, this is hitting perfect in that time frame because it'll be 8 p.m. Eastern, which is 5 p.m. West Coast time. So the Chargers will be better in a better spot physically. However, I still don't think that's going to help. I'm literally grasping at straws here to try and give a reason why the Chargers will win this game.
When the axis of this part of the lines with that and it's perfect weather and that, like, sure. And also, like, not to mention they're still traveling from the West Coast to the East Coast. So you're right about the timing and all this, and that might be scientifically true. But also, we all know that there are studies about traveling from a West Coast time zone to an East Coast time zone and what that does to your body as well.
She was saying though, like she had me convinced. I don't know what it was. Maybe it was just me being pre-wiped, but I was like literally like, oh wow, I guess that does make sense. And she was like, yeah, whether they travel east or if the East Coast team travels west, the West Coast team always has an advantage in those games. And I was like, I don't know. I don't know
if the numbers bear that out. I'll be honest, I don't have them in front of me, but I'm pretty sure there's a lot of betting trends that say that the traveling team is usually in a bad spot. But I don't know. We'll see how it plays out. I guess we're both on the favorite here in this game. Then Monday Night Football, man, we get Mike Tomlin and the Steelers. We all know the drama from last week. What a finish. Tyler Loop, missed field goal. Since then, John Harbaugh's been fired. But the AFC North champion Steelers are home dogs, 3-point dogs against the Texans. The Steelers have not won or covered a playoff game since 2016, the 2016-2017 season. They're on a 6-game straight up and against the spread losing streak, the longest in their franchise's history. And this is the first true dog that I'm taking, I guess, this week. And the Bills, depending on when you got the number, are dogs. But I'm on Pittsburgh here. I think this is actually going to be higher scoring as well. That total of 38 might be my favorite bet of the weekend. I know you think this is going to be two defensive struggles and all that. The Texans defense just gave up 30 to Riley Leonard and the Colts in his first start. I actually believe this will be higher scoring. DK Metcalf is back in the mix. Give me the Steelers at home with the 3 points that I'm getting. And I think there's a chance they win this thing outright in one of the bigger surprises of the weekend. And Aaron Rodgers continues his career at least for another game, if in fact this is it for him.
I think the Steelers are going to need an entire keg worth of that holy water that priest was spreading on the end zone last week. I feel like it's going to take a lot. I'm not as high on the Steelers as you are, but I will give credit to Aaron Rodgers, which I never thought those words would ever come out of my mouth. But this dude is, kudos to him, man. I love to harp on him as much as literally anyone else, but the job that he has done this year and at his age, it's just been phenomenal. He's playing with house money. He's going like in his 40s after an Achilles tear. Like I have a buddy who's like in his mid 30s who just tore his Achilles. Like him doing anything athletic after this, I'd be shocked at. And here Aaron Rodgers is winning games in the NFL, winning the division, winning the NFC North or the AFC North, which is arguably one of the hardest divisions to win. I just feel like it doesn't matter whether he wins or loses. Aaron Rodgers succeeded this year. I thought tremendous. And not for the Steelers fans that wanted Tomlin fired though. So they're kind of like, they're the Larry David meme gif of just like I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, Mike Tomlin as a home dog. I'll go ahead and take the points that I'm getting in this spot against the Houston Texans. We'll see if CJ Stroud can step up and deliver as well in a crucial moment. Monday night, we'll have to wait for that one. All right, let's get back to college football. We know a national title is set. Title game is set with Miami and Indiana. And next Saturday, we'll do a full deep dive on how we see that game playing out. But all I know is, man, the SEC is nowhere to be found in this title game for a third year in a row.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let me first say this, that I grew up in Nashville. I went to an SEC school. So SEC fans, just know this comes from one of you. If you're watching on YouTube or Twitch, you can see I'm dressed in all black for this funeral. I am here to deliver the eulogy for the Southeastern Conference's dominance in football. Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to lay rest to the SEC's dominance in football. Earlier this week, we were forced to remove SEC dominance off of life support it was on for the last 3 seasons. Each year, you've been given more playoff spots than any other conference. And each year, you've come up shorter than Diego Pavia, failing to qualify for even a spot in the national championship. The dominance in this conference has aged worse than the Hotel Conference sitting playoff committee Blue Hairs, who keep the league's reputation alive with their selections. And it's not just that the SEC dominance is deceased. The entire conference lacked competitiveness. It's not just the mighty pillars of Tuscaloosa and Athens falling. The entire SEC Coliseum has come crumbling down. The conference only racked up 2 bowl wins against non-SEC teams, one of which was against Tulane, and the other came from a team that you just let into the conference last year. Aside from that, you went 0-10. Wake Forest, Illinois, Iowa, Houston. Never mind the national championship. The SEC couldn't even pick up a win in the ReliaQuest Bowl. The SEC felt more like the MAC. Shout out Maction. Guest Lane Kiffin is right about one thing. It's just different in the SEC. Different as in not as good. It just means more? More what? Losses than any other conference? One of the SEC's best in Ole Miss was completely dominated in the trenches by Miami, a trait that used to be the lifeblood of this conference. Literally. Some people's blood type is O positive. The SEC's blood type was O-line. Emphasis on was. Now other teams are running the ball down your throats, forcing the conference to swallow nothing but L's because, well, we know the conference isn't swallowing its pride. It doesn't know how to. Gone are the days of filling the echoes of stadiums nationwide with the only 3 letters fans know in the alphabet. SEC. All because this conference wouldn't learn the most important letters in college football. NIL. But unfortunately, there are 3 more letters this conference needs to learn. RIP. The SEC dominance. Gone, but certainly not forgotten, because if there's one thing Southeastern Conference fans love to live in, it's the past. Amen.
That's touching words about the SEC, man. That was really touching. And
thank you.
It's been a while since they've been in this game, and I'm with you. I think we're in a new era of college football, and there are individuals that might have to leave this country even because of this. How about that? Right? Like, I know there's a ton of talk about the future, but there was comments that were made. I don't know if you recall back in August from the great Paul Feinbaum on a podcast called the Scarlet and Gray Podcast. Listen to this from August.
The last question that I have for you, and it's really just to have it on record. Who's going to win the national championship, and is it going to be an SEC team?
It is. And by the way, if it's not, I'm leaving the country because I am so sick and tired of being harassed by Big Ten fans on our show. The Big Ten has literally done nothing. They won 2 national championships. Michigan won 1 2 years ago. They won 1.5 national championships, I think, before that in 70 years, and they act like they invented football.
I mean,
Wow.
Paul.
I mean,
those bags
there's
packed.
some Big Ten fans. Big Ten fans would gladly help pack his bags, I think, at this point. You know, I think
Paul,
Indiana's got the largest alumni base. We're finding out. Everybody's learning more and more about Indiana, and I think it's got like 800. I think someone said 820,000 alumni or whatever it is. They're part of its alumni association and all this. And the tickets, I'm sure you've seen the pricing for this national title game are absolutely crazy for Miami playing in their backyard in Indiana. We don't need the SEC to have a great national title game. We don't need that.
I mean, I think it's all but certainty that Indiana's winning the national championship against Miami, and that'll be the third straight year that the Big Ten Conference has won the national title. So by, Paul Feinbaum's, Paul Feinbaum did, made it a career off of the SEC's dominance. Now the Big Ten is starting to, take back some of that. So I don't know, Paul, I guess if you need help packing, I'm sure like Alex said, many people in the Big Ten that will gladly help you see your way out the door.
I'm going to let Austin wipe away some more of those tears. I think he needs to get a Kleenex or whatever. A very emotional couple minutes talking about we're at with the SEC. But up next, I do want to get to some Goldilocks. Maybe we can bring some smiles to people and actually win some money this week, because you know what? We sure as hell didn't last week. We'll try some Goldilocks next year on Westwood One Sports.
This is BetMGM Game Day nationwide on Westwood One Sports. weekend slate. BetMGM Game Day continues on Westwood One Sports.
Let's give this another try. How about it, huh? Last week we started with some Goldilocks, and Austin warned me. He warned me that, hey, man, if we're going to do this show together, you got to be prepared that if we're on the same page with a bet, it's not going to go well for you. And I said, we'll be fine, man. We'll be all right. Tampa will cover. Tampa will cover. We won't get screwed over by the hook or anything like that. They'll cover I think it was 3.5 last week or whatever. Nope. Of course, Tampa loses out on the bet by 0.5 point for us. Then Ole Miss the other night, national semifinal. They, of course, were up late in that game before Carson Beck had an unbelievable drive to win it for Miami. We had Ole Miss plus 3.5. They end up losing and do not cover by 0.5 point or so as well.
Yeah.
So we go 0-2 with the Goldilocks, man. This segment, as I said, is either going to turn into the complete opposite, where it'll be, the fades at this point, or we're going to bounce back because we're 0-2. Not a good start to debut the show, with the Goldilocks. So I'm going back, and I don't know if you're on any of these bets at all, but I'm going Buffalo plus 1.5. You can still find it out there. They're favorites on one book, but Buffalo 1.5 point underdogs on the road at Jacksonville. Some of this is me simply taking the best quarterback, not only in the game, but I still think in the AFC playoff field. I know Trevor Lawrence. You mentioned it. You're right. He's playing his best football of his NFL career, and Liam Cohen is a huge reason for that. Look what he's done with Jacoby Myers and Parker Washington, and these are all fair arguments. The Jags defense that is one of the top rush defenses in the NFL. I do have a Bills team. While it is all about Josh Allen's legacy and getting over the hump, and is Sean McDermott's job in jeopardy and all of that, and is this the same Bills team of the past? And it's not. In fact, they're not the same Bills team in terms of being a team that I think if they had to deal with Kansas City in their prime or Baltimore in their prime. But they're on the road, and it's wild card weekend, and Josh Allen and James Cook, to me, these are two guys that will step up in this moment. And I think we'll be able to be part of what should be a very high-scoring game. You see that total of 51.5 as well. I like Josh Allen to put on the Superman cape and get it done. He'll be even more aggressive in the run game. I think they have success there. Look for an anytime touchdown as well from Khalil Shakir, their wide receiver. And the Bills get it done and outright winners. So plus 1.5 will be the goalie lock, but I think they win this one outright anyway, minus 105 on the money line.
To further the point of the job that Liam Cohen has done in Jacksonville this year is how much Tampa Bay struggled offensively this year without him in the building. And, he's just a quarterback whisperer. He's good at what he does. And that's why I am going with Jacksonville. I think Trevor Lawrence is playing. So you're good here. Like the Surgeon General's warning for this show is do not pick the way that Austin picks, because I am terrible at this. But, so you're 1 for 1 so far, Alex. So you should be
I hope that's
feeling good about yourself.
A good sign. I hope that's a really good sign. By the way, the Bills, if you're looking for live betting opportunities over at BetMGM today, if they find themselves down a little bit, and I know you might be wondering, is the season over? The Bills have 6 outright wins this year when they trail by 7 or more points. That's actually tied for the most in a single season in Bills history. So if they're down at any point, this is a Bills team that's been able to come back. I know a couple weeks ago, we know Josh Allen had an opportunity to come back and get the win on a 2-point conversion against Philadelphia. And he was off the mark. They had it right there, and that was all on Josh Allen. I think if that same scenario presents itself again, Josh Allen is making that throw, making that play. And if not, we'll be having a fascinating conversation, I think, next week about whether or not Sean McDermott still has his job, or if, in fact, they have a brand-new general manager in Buffalo. Something will change. If this bet doesn't hit and the Bills lose outright, something's going to change in Buffalo, whether it's with the GM or the head coach.
Give me chaos or give me death. That's all I ask.
All about it, man. Team Chaos here on BetMGM Game Day. The other lock, how about we go to the first wild card game? We get in a couple hours, 4:30 kick in Charlotte. And we've got the Rams, minus 10.5. And that is a massive number for the NFL and for a postseason game. It's one of the bigger spreads. I get it, that we have seen. Carolina, to me, is not playing good football at all. Not only are they coming out of a terrible NFC South division, but as I said a few times today, I think they're actually been playing the worst football of any team in that division. Backdoor their way into the postseason. They needed a tiebreaker. Remember, they needed the Saints to lose, and they did, to Atlanta in order to get in because they lost to the Bucs, and a Bucs team that also was not playing good football. I think this is about to get ugly, man. I don't think Bryce Young is going to be able, if that running game gets shut down and Jared Verse and company of the Rams are effective getting after Bryce Young, I think he's due for at least a pick or two in this game and going to make some mistakes. This is not just about Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford playing well. This is also a bet against Bryce Young in this spot. So a ton of points. That might scare some people off, but I'll go ahead and lay them. Rams minus 10.5 against Carolina.
Ooh, oh man. I mean, I like the pick in the Rams, but I don't know. I mean, that's a large number, especially in the playoffs. 10.5. I don't know if I could. Okay, you know what? I would actually take the Panthers to to cover. I don't think they're going to win, but I think they'll cover that spread. So, you know what, Alex, you might be 2 for 2 this week. You're going against the grain. You learned very quickly. Do not go with anything that I say. So right now you're sitting pretty, dude.
I hope that's the case. We definitely need a bounce back week. I will say, to the point about how big of a favorite they are, the biggest road favorites in NFL history come postseason. You got to go back to 2020. The Bucs were 10-point favorites at Washington. The Bucs won 31-23. They did not cover. The Saints were 9.5-point favorites at Seattle back in 2010. They lost outright, 41-36. And the Steelers were 7.5-point favorites at Denver back in 2011. They lost outright, 29-23. I don't think we have to worry about an outright loss for the Rams. But yes, the history typically does not bode well for a team to cover in the postseason like this. I just think Sean McVay, is also one of the best coaches in football. I have the Rams going to the Super Bowl, and I think they kick it off with a pretty impressive performance on the road against a Panthers team that I just think they're terrible. Like, I understand Dave Canales gets credit for getting in the postseason. I just don't think Carolina's any good. I think they're garbage. I really do.
Yeah, they haven't really. It's one of those things. It's like that that meme with the dragons, and one of them's the goofy one. That's what the Panthers are in this year's playoffs. It just feels like they somehow snuck into a party where they don't even go to this school. What are they doing at this prom? I that's what I want to know. But I don't know. But then again, how many times have we done things like this, especially in the NFL, where we're like, yeah, this is a foregone conclusion. The Rams can go ahead and start booking their travel plans for their divisional round, and that's exactly when a Panthers team pulls off the upset.
It's going to go one of two ways. We're either going to have a narrative, as we're watching the game of like, oh, see, this is why NFC South, if you don't win X amount of games, you shouldn't host a playoff game. Because, right, we've seen that noise already happening this week where, it's like, why do we need to reseed the postseason and all of that? Or it could work the opposite way. The Panthers make this a lot closer. It's late, and it's a one-possession game, and people are saying, see, this is why it doesn't matter. I don't know where you stand on the conversation around that. Like, I still am an old-school guy when it comes to division winning. Like, hey, you win your division. I don't care how easy or how difficult. The division has to mean something. Like, I have no issue with Carolina hosting this game. I know people will say, how is an 8-win team getting a home playoff game? Why do the Rams have to go on the road? People want them to reseed it. I just think you win your division. Maybe you get lucky this year because your division stinks, but like that has to mean something. Otherwise, what are we doing about division titles? Who cares anymore? If that's
didn't one of those Giants teams back in the day win the East with like a 7-9 record or something? I'm with you. I think the division has got to mean something, and you can't control the division that you're in. All right, if the division stinks and you win it, like that's really out of your control. You can only play the teams that you can play, and I do think you need to get something for winning your division. Otherwise, what's the point of divisions?
Yeah, I get annoyed with that conversation that happens every couple of years. It's not an every year occurrence. And the NFC South stinks. It does. But I don't think we need to overreact and start reseeding the postseason or anything like that. It's just kind of just how it works. And some teams are going to get some breaks because of it. The Rams, I think, essentially are getting a bye. But, we know physically they're not. And that could end up impacting them, I guess, on the road to a Super Bowl. But I think the Rams will kick us off here at 4:30 Eastern time there in Charlotte and get a great wild card weekend going. I'm excited, man. I'm excited for this. Again, the game that I'm most locked into will be Buffalo and Jacksonville tomorrow, 1 o'clock Eastern time. But it should be a great weekend for the sports fan and the sports bettor. Austin, been a lot of fun again on another edition of BetMGM Game Day. You can give him a follow at Austin Huff on Twitter and X, at Alex Gold. We'll be tweeting out some clips if you missed anything on the show today. We're back at it next Saturday. We'll be talking about a national title game taking place down in Miami and, of course, divisional round weekend in the NFL as well. Have a great rest of the weekend.
This is BetMGM Game Day on Westwood One Sports.